Good morning to everyone. Welcome to the roundtable discussion, to rank or not to rank, that is the question, which is organized by the Academic Staff Association. And I must also note the help that we received from the Sejahtera Center for Sustainability and Humanity, who has assisted us a lot in organizing this event. And also the Office of the Director of IIUM, who has been very supportive of this roundtable discussion. To be honest, actually, it was Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli who mooted the idea that ASA should actually host this roundtable discussion. So actually, we had 25 participants who are supposed to be with us physically, but unfortunately, perhaps due to some circumstances, they are not able to join us. But we hope, perhaps, inshallah, they'll be with us soon. And this event is also being streamed live on YouTube, official IIUM YouTube. So it will be there. So even though perhaps we might not have the number of audience that we hoped, but I think we should proceed with this important discussion because, as we all know, the issue of ranking is being debated in the public. Our rector, for example, has been very vocal regarding the issues surrounding ranking, especially global university rankings. And also there was a recent report by the United Nations University stating that there are indeed issues with the global ranking system in which developing countries are often left behind because the criteria normally favors Western universities and which are basically in developed countries. So I think this forum is important for us as academic members of the university and also the higher education. I don't like to use the word industry, perhaps the higher education landscape. It is important for us to actually discuss this and be honest about this, because on one extreme, we do have issues with ranking. But on the other hand, there needs to be a certain way to measure or to benchmark the standards of quality of higher education. Because there are indeed concerns regarding the quality of our students, the quality of academic members themselves as well, and the quality of, especially when it comes to research, postgraduate students, etc. And the dilemma is that when it comes to international students as well, what attracts them to university sometimes, oftentimes, especially if they are sponsored by their governments, is the ranking of the university. So that is an inescapable fact. So how do we actually, balance the need to attract international students and at the same time do not submit ourselves to the global ranking system? So perhaps this is an issue which will be deliberated this morning, inshallah. The moderator who is supposed to moderate the first panel discussion, unfortunately, is unwell. So I have to become the bidan terjun, as I say in Malay. I don't know whether there is equivalent in the English language. So I'll be replacing her. But before that, just let me go through the program for today. So I've done the welcoming remarks. I do apologize for starting a bit late. 10 minutes late. I think by Malaysian standards, it's quite quick. Normally, it's always half an hour. But we try to stick to the time that we have set. So in the first panel discussion, we have Professor Zaharom Nain with us, who is from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences of University of Nottingham, Malaysia, and also the chair of Gerakan Tenaga Akademik, GERAK. And he will be speaking about the role of higher education institutions and academics. And I think this is important to set the tone, just like an umbrella subject perhaps, in which we will look at the role of higher education institutions and also academics in that sense. And then the second panelist for this first panel discussion is Dr. Sharifah Munirah Alatas, who was a former visiting professor at the Faculty of Social Sciences, Indonesian International Islamic University, UII, Indonesia, and also a former assistant professor at University Kebangsaan, Malaysia. And we have with us also Professor Dr. Abidin Sanusi, the director of the Sejahtera Center for Sustainability and Humanity. Normally, the short form is what's CASH. looking for cash and a cash cow also from the International Islamic University Malaysia. So he'll be talking about measuring what matters. So is there a need to measure, and to what extent, and what tools perhaps? He'll be deliberating on that, inshallah. So I think without further ado, yeah, it's 9:30 a.m. So I think it's good for us to start. So I invite Professor Zaharom Nain. So I heard him on BFM yesterday. So today is good to see him in person as well, besides hearing him speak. So Professor Zaharom, the floor is yours.
Oh, it's on now. Yeah, assalamu alaikum, and good morning to all of you. I've been here a couple of times before, but never to this this big hall here. In such a grand setting as well. So before I start, I'd like to thank the Academic Staff Association and UIA, sorry, or IIUM, specifically Dr. Muhammad Adli Musa, for inviting me to speak here on this seemingly important theme of ranking. As I go on, I will probably understand why I say seemingly. My task, as Adli said, just now is to provide a wider background as to what has become a bit of a hot issue within some influential and easily excitable sectors of academia in Malaysia. At the onset, may I say that the title of this roundtable clearly borrows from Shakespeare's Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. What seems ironic to me, and I hope you feel the same way too, is that we are employing a refashioned title from Shakespeare, from the creative arts and humanities, to look at the empiricist, cold, largely quantitative notion and practice of ranking. I'm not sure whether Shakespeare is rolling in discomfort or jumping for joy in his grave at the present moment at this in response. But nonetheless, be that as it may, my primary task this morning is to look at the role of higher education institutions and academics in relation to all of this, particularly in Malaysia. I'm hoping to cover 5 interconnected areas in this presentation, and these are: 1, ideology and the role of higher education institutions; 2, politics, education and the role of policies; 3, education and academics as utilities; 4, joining the big players and desperately trying to catch up; and 5, to rank or not to rank. In the mid-1980s, when I first returned to these shores to begin teaching in the communications program in University of Science Malaysia, USM, I was indeed bemused and a trifle disturbed, observing many of my colleagues desperately trying to make journalists, broadcasters, filmmakers, advertisers, and public relations officers out of their students when they themselves had hardly spent time in a newsroom, an editing facility, or a PR agency. It was a painfully comic sight to behold. The emphasis then, as I know it is now, was on how to construct artifacts: a news article, a photograph, a film, an advertising copy, a television show, following particular models, largely bastardized versions of Western, many American media artifacts. What I believed was the more important question of why they were doing so was hardly addressed. As some of my more critical colleagues and I began to look further into this, we started to piece together how ideology, in this case, a particular ideology of development and modernization, played a pivotal role in framing how many of the programs and modules in our universities would be structured and their overall trajectory. Quite simply put, higher education institutions in Malaysia were primarily seen as a training ground for the future future professionals and bureaucrats of this country. The Malaya Institute of Technology, ITM, now UITM, was a classic example of this way of thinking. To quote from the UITM website, its establishment came as a response to a crucial need in the country for trained manpower at professional and semi-professional levels, especially among Bumiputras. This shortage was identified through a manpower survey conducted by the government in a 1965 collaboration with the United Nations. The question of why was not totally deleted from many modules and programs, but how questions tended to dominate the thinking behind the programs for many of the public universities that started emerging under the new economic policy onwards. ITM's goal of providing trained manpower at professional and semi-professional levels was the reason for being for many of these institutions and have remained so since. There is, of course, nothing wrong with such an aim. The problem arises when it becomes the only aim, as envisaged not only by those in power in Malaysia, but clearly by those in power in other developing countries as well, wishing to progress, as it were, in the image of the developed West. Education, including higher education, thus became too important as a generator of material growth and development to be left outside the hands of governments. So almost right from the start, higher education institutions in Malaysia have had to move in tandem with the needs of the government of the day. These needs were, indeed are, seen as the needs of the people, since for a long time now, governments have successfully spun this line of being there for the rakyat and protecting these institutions which they allegedly fund for the rakyat. I'll just put this out here at this juncture and leave it to another time and place to thoroughly critique this notion of a benign government. In media studies and the social sciences as a whole, there is a theory called functionalism. It is based on the premise that all aspects of a society, institutions, roles, norms, etc., serve a purpose and that all are indispensable for the long-term survival of the society. In other words, all actions, roles, and institutions in society, including higher education, must function for that society. The legitimacy of that society and how it is run is deemed unimportant and hardly questioned. This status quo orientation of functionalism, of course, is quite stark. We could strongly argue that functionalism was the ideology that drove and still drives the development of higher education in Malaysia. If we combine this with neoliberal policies of deregulation, privatization, and the logic of the market that have been the rage in Malaysia since at least Mahathir's privatization and Malaysia Inc. policies of the 1980s, we begin to unravel what indeed is going on with our higher education and the emphasis on playing the rankings game. It is clear thus far, I believe, that higher education, certainly in Malaysia, cannot at the present time be divorced from politics. Indeed, anyone with even a passing familiarity with Malaysian academe would by now know how politicized our higher education system is. I believe that many of us either try to ignore all that political noise or instead decide to play the game, to game the system. In so doing, of course, we perpetuate, even reinforce it, and of course, legitimize it. We take it as a matter of course that there must be ethnic quotas. We often enough agree that the government of the day, via an institution like the Ministry of Higher Education, has the right and responsibility to purportedly guide higher education institutions, particularly public universities. We too easily forget that there exists a legal document, Act 506, the National Council on Higher Education Act of 1996, whose task is to plan, formulate, and determine national policies and strategies for the development of higher education in Malaysia. Despite its lofty, noble aims, for reasons best known by those in power, the Council has remained outside the sphere of influence. We, university leaders, academics, students, and administrators seem to abide by policies that negatively affect us. We hardly raise a whimper, even as the Universities and University Colleges Act, our AUKU, and Act 605 impinge on our freedom, remove much autonomy from us, and allow forces from outside our institutions to carve out the path and our future for us. We quietly allow them to set the parameters for us and for our universities. Sadly, we often enough make no demands. We provide no pushback. Instead, we seem to comply with their notions of what higher education is all about. We very happily take on board what is handed down to us. Indeed, there is this urban legend of one DG, Director General of the Ministry of Higher Education, who, when approached to support greater autonomy for public universities, said dismissively they wouldn't know what to do with that autonomy. The point is, our universities do not exist in a vacuum. There already exist policies and strategies largely designed by politicians who have their own agenda, which impact on the nature of our universities. Arguably, then, what we have in Malaysia is a widely held belief, certainly by those in power, that education and academics are essentially utilities, a means to an end. At their worst, both would be seen as useful for achieving an aim, but not going beyond that. This utilitarian approach, quite cynically and sadly, pins very little faith in that very education system and those working within that system. Their thoughts and ideas mean very little except when they serve a purpose, dictated to them by those in power. We, that is, are shown very little respect, even as we bend over backwards to please and placate those who have real power. Short of handing out a begging bowl, we flinch at their admonishments and climb over each other to catch their attention, to please them. I make no apologies for painting a sad and pathetic picture of Malaysian academia and many Malaysian academics. Of course, there are those who are widely respected and can hang their heads high and with much dignity. But to be honest, and this is clearly not based on a wide empirical study, it is really, to be honest, it is really disconcerting the number of times I've been approached by junior academics with PhDs having some complaint about bullying, exploitation, blatant plagiarism by their senior colleagues. But they're not willing to fight back for fear that they will lose their jobs or be victimized in their departments. They seem flabbergasted when I tell them that they could always get another job with their qualifications. It's as if they don't have faith in their own abilities and qualifications. Surely, I ask myself, they can't be like that politician with a doctorate who can't differentiate between a limb and a lead. I certainly should hope they aren't, but I do worry. A few ministers of education ago, the idea of Malaysia becoming a higher education hub was mooted by the minister then. To do that, of course, would require the success and glory, if any, of our higher education institutions to be announced internationally and new areas of glory-seeking discovered. So out into the big bad world we went, and we're still going there, to attract overseas students to our shores and overseas institutions as well. I don't think there was any pretense that the main, if not only, motive was economic. It was at this time also, I believe, that ranking became an obsession. The minister then said, and I think this was Idris Yusof, since 2012, the position of our higher education in the Universitas 21, U21, ranking has moved 11 positions ahead from 36th to 25th position at the moment. We can see that the position of University Malaya, which has always been up and rising, which is not true, is targeted to be in the top 100 universities in the world within 2 years, and this was in 2012. The last I saw, I think University Malaya was in number 300 or something like that, which is not too bad. And this same kind of narrative has been spun annually since. But since then also, there's been a bit of a backlash. In January this year, for instance, one article questioned the methodology of the QS ranking. In June this year, Columbia University announced it would no longer participate in the US News and World Report college rankings as it was concerned about the outsized influence rankings played in the undergraduate administration process. To end my presentation and come one full circle, I would change the title of this roundtable to a question, namely, to rank or not to rank. Is that the question? In my presentation, I've tried to bring into the equation wider factors, the context of Malaysian higher education, the ongoing history of political influence and pressures put on it, and on academics. My aim was to suggest quite strongly that there are really more immediate and serious questions that need to be interrogated than questions about the desire for rankings. I'm sure others here will show that rankings are important. Be that as it may, my contention is that there are many more issues surrounding Malaysian academia that are more important and which need our serious and immediate attention. I believe that we must resist the neoliberal urges and political imperatives negatively affecting the Malaysian higher education system. Thank you for listening and for allowing me to paint a not too flattering picture of our higher education system and those of us in it. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Professor Zaharom Nain. Indeed, I think you have set the scene for us to be discussing not only about ranking, but also other pertinent issues in relation to academia. And as you have mentioned, there are indeed many pressing issues which needs to be addressed. And I think we are discussing about ranking today because it's often tied with also KPIs of academics. And that also perhaps is the cause for bullying, plagiarism, the obsession for ranking and trying to make a mark. So we'll move to the second speaker. So we have with us Dr. Sharifah Munirah Alatas, who will be speaking about decolonizing higher education. And I think this is also a very important topic for us to understand. And without further ado, the floor is yours, Dr. Sharifah.
Thank you, Dr. Adli. I'd like to thank you and all the other others involved in organizing this for inviting us. My topic is actually a decolonial perspective on the global university rankings. So it's not really about decolonizing the university per se, although it has a big part to play in how universities around the world have developed. Now, the reason why I've decided to tear GURs apart decolonially is because we need to generate additional awareness as to why higher education, not just in Malaysia, but globally, is declining and is becoming nothing more than a business opportunity for many entities, including industry, which I hate, as you said, I hate using the word industry when it comes to education, but that's the reality. The other reason I need to mention a different approach to this critique of GURs is to prompt so that we will generate more anger towards the ranking, the system itself, as well as the fact that universities globally seem to be duped by this notion that ranking is actually for our benefit. Now let me proceed. I will use a lot of terminology from international relations, from strategic thinking, terms like hegemony, power, colonialism, bias. But to begin with, global university ranking system, GURs, is mostly a Euro-American centric process. Of course, China is on board as well, but the majority, the most influential of GURs are based in the global north, among developed countries. Now, I would say that the GURs are predominantly a hegemonic system because of the idea to dominate and control the global higher education ecology. That's essentially what it is. It's control. It is also extractive, which is another decolonial term. It is extractive because all nations pay, and pay very much. It's very expensive to get ranked, including the poorer countries, universities in poor countries, they pay to get ranked. But it is marketed as in this sentence, well, you pay a lot, but at least there's a chance to increase your academic reputation. If not this year, next year, maybe 10 years from now. So there's that carrot that is always dangled. So this is the duping process. And it's also biased because it normalizes the idea of universal. Universal meaning the criteria used by ranking systems are supposed to be universal and applicable widely. But on the other hand, it marginalizes regional, national, political, cultural, and economic diversity in each of our countries. And it is intrusive. The global university ranking system is intrusive because it influences our social and political policy. Indirectly, it actually shapes or forces us to shape academic governance the way we are told it should be to become a great university. For example, nations feel indirectly pressured to standardize curricula and with stupid rules. For instance, don't use a book that is older than 5 years from today. I can't use a book published in 1895 because it goes against the ranking. It will pull your university rank lower. Now, this is ridiculous, but in that sense, it's intrusive. Another term I will use is GURs are exploitative, which Rom just mentioned as well. There are 4 most influential ranking companies. QS, we all know QS very well, US News and World Report, Times Higher Education, and the Chinese Shanghai Ranking Corporate Consultancy. They are all for private businesses, they are companies, and I would say these are leaders of the capitalist knowledge economy. That's basically what they are. They also align themselves with major publishing companies such as Clarivate, Elsevier, Wiley, Springer. Both of these groups of companies extract data, time, and other resources from thousands of universities around the world. And we, as the ranking customers, meaning the universities everywhere throughout the globe, universities and governments, these customers need to provide annual data, which creates demand for analytics and connected consultancy projects. So there is a web of financial exploitation going on. GURs are basically a hierarchical league competition, and universities pay a lot to compete in this huge web of financial profit for a few companies. Now, this distracts the university's basic function. This business model distracts universities from their core academic focus. It distracts academics from teaching and engaging in community-specific research. You see, whenever we talk about ranking, we are never focusing on teaching. We are always talking about academics need to publish or perish. The teaching part is often ignored, but we forget that teaching is the university's core function. We may argue about it, but I stand by it. Teaching is a very important aspect. Now, to get back to the decolonial approach, let me explain what I mean by colonial and how it applies in terms of the ranking. Colonial implies the aspect of asymmetrical system of power competition. Asymmetrical meaning uneven. GURs create centers and peripheries. Centers meaning these are the 4 to 5 ranking companies that I spoke of earlier. And the periphery are all of us around the world. It normalizes or standardizes excellence, the notion of excellence. The notion of excellence is based on Western criteria. Evaluation is based on English language publications predominantly, and is also STEM biased. Social sciences are basically ignored in that sense. So this marginalizes diversity, and there is a preference to subdue diversity because it's easy to control and dominate. If everything is more or less the same, it's easier to dominate. And this is the colonial project as well. And I mentioned hegemony earlier, but basically, hegemony is about big power interests and how the rest have to follow it and should be the interests of all the rest. Now, I threw in this word incestuous. GURs are also incestuous. The way I look at it is, the word incestuous actually means incest and incestuous, two different words, okay? I'm not talking about incest. I'm talking about here incestuous, which means it's excessively close and resistant to outside influence. So research and publication data collected are used by GURs to calculate number of citations of an article in ranked journals, volume of articles ranked in those ranked journals produced by a university, and the number of authors of these articles who are affiliated to the university. Okay, now how is this incestuous? At the same time, rankers regularly publish who the top journals are and who the publishers are. So they feed off each other. Elsevier, Clarivet, Wiley, Springer, all these publishers work closely with databases which rank and index journals. And these are, we are familiar with the words, the names Scopus, Web of Science, ProQuest, and ISI. By the way, all this began in 2003. It's not that old, actually. It began in the year 2003. And I remember in 2004, I was walking up the stairs to my office at UKM. Somebody else was walking down and grunting in a low voice, Scopus this, Scopus that. And I didn't understand what he meant, you know? But a few months later, it was the craze. I'm losing my voice, sorry. It was the craze, or rather it was the stress to suddenly get on board. And this is 2004, but it started in 2003. So very quickly, a country like Malaysia, so far away from the global north, we started grunting about Scopus this and that. So now scholars and universities scramble to produce data for annual rating by subscribing to these journals. Then the VCs push us to publish in these journals. Paying to get published, we have to pay to get published. However, when we review articles as part of the peer review, we are not paid. Yet, reviewing articles is included in our KPI. So do you see how exploitative and at the same time incestuous? Everyone is tied into this web, and the major winners are very few companies who manage to get rich. Now, I'm going to now divert a little bit more to mention there's been a lot of criticism about the global rankings, and I'm doing it right now. The problem with critiquing is that it's still business as usual. The reason is because the problem with our criticism is that they are rendered irrelevant by the logic, as Rom just mentioned, the logics of efficiency and economic value. The trouble is, everywhere in the world, we accept that this is logical. Economic gain and benefit is generally logical. The market doesn't, the market says the truth, but this is not true. Let me also mention that publishing all these critiques, many of us also publish what we criticize about the GURs. But this is the greatest irony of it all. We criticize GURs, then we look for a Scopus journal to publish in it. Of course, I don't do that. I write in my popular column, Free Malaysia Today. But this is the irony. It feeds directly back into the GURs unethical practices. It provides financial fuel to keep the process going. Critical debates like this are encouraged in Scopus journals and what have you. That is to give the impression that these so-called ranking companies are actually open to listening to criticism in the hope of maybe changing. But this is the duping process. They are all for freedom of expression, but when it comes down to it, they still do it year in and year out. They are not sincere. Now I would say it's time for alternatives. We need to know how unethical the process is, and rather than sitting still and just criticizing, a country like Malaysia has to start now. Now, the minister who just got, you must use the right word, got transferred to another ministry. I'm not going to say anything about the minister. All I'm saying is his statement, latest statement about rankings was very welcome, because in no other time has a minister come out and said that rankings is a problem. Okay, although it was just one sentence, we have to take that and run with it. We need a dual strategy. While criticizing GURs, we must be sincere about reforming our universities and the higher education system. And this is to pick up on what Rom just mentioned. Criticizing the exploitation of the global north is good, but it's inadequate and it's hypocritical if we don't criticize ourselves and do our own changes. Because we have suppressed academic freedom too much, we have suppressed critical thinking, we criminalize student activism, we discourage open discourses on campus on so-called sensitive topics, we platform public intellectuals who are deemed far left or too liberal. We still condone political appointments in top university positions. We are unserious about eradicating academic dishonesty. We close an eye to political patronage, and we continue to prop up mediocre academics. We continue to churn out PhDs with nothing in them, in their minds. Now we forget that while we are criticizing GURs, we should also criticize the university system in the West that is going on right now with regard to them silencing their own academics. With the current situation going on in Gaza, there's nothing to look up to the Western education system anymore. So we need to now grab the occasion, hold the GURs by their neck and criticize them, but at the same time, take care of our own problems. Do it together. I would like to now probably end by suggesting a few concrete strategies. Can I say that political leaders, university leadership included, look at the way I phrased it, political leaders, university leaders included, meaning that they are leaders because of politics. But that's not what I meant. Leadership in general should start the conversation about creating non-aligned, unranked, and alternative higher education institutions. Engage with lecturers, engage with student reps, student leaders, staff associations, investors and businesses, and start discussing why GURs are unethical. I don't think this conversation has happened yet. Oppose its excessive capitalist corporate forms. A well-known decolonial scholar who's actually I think, yes, he's a sociologist, Boaventura de Sousa Santos. He suggested that we make universities to be extensions of learning into communities. And I think UIA's own rector came up with a concept of communiversity. Okay, there's a similarity there. But we need to speak about and put this out there as part of the narrative to move away from our obsession. And I'm not saying move away from the obsession. I'm also saying discard some of our reasons to participate in ranking. Now this is a very important, my last point. Can we have a conversation about creating a network of universities that are interdependent rather than competitive? Meaning, get back to our old practice of having universities with specialty areas. We used to have University Pertanian Malaysia. It became Putra because it was part of the whole understanding that we need to expand and we need to diversify. But I don't see that as a solution to the problem of how we are now up against a wall of ranking. If we go back to our specialty, we will not necessarily need to compete with each other. After all, there are universities in the West which are known for their specific areas of focus. Chicago School or the Anal School, they all originated from universities which specialized in specific areas or disciplines. So we need a change in mindset, and the reason is, and the strategy is to get back to specialty areas. I'm losing my voice, so I think I'm going to end here, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharifah Munirah, for that enlightening take on decolonizing GURs. And you mentioned about communiversity. So I think this is a good, transition to our next speaker, who is a champion on this issue, on this concept. So we have with us Professor Zainal Abidin Sanusi, the director of the Sejahtera Center for Sustainability and Humanity. So I think this center, together with the rector, is the one who coined up this term communiversity. So without further ado, I invite Professor Zainal to speak about measuring what matters. So I'm sure he's going to mention communiversity.
Thank you, Dr. Agli. I'll just, yeah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Yes, I'll try to share the ideas and the initiative that we have been doing on this communiversity. I totally agree, and I guess we have talked a lot, and both very honorable professor before has mentioned it, or even to a certain extent, debunk all the thing about ranking, and we are together in that. And the question is that how do we move on? And I really like what Prof. Munirah was saying, that we need just to come up with our own and move forward. And to me, enough of that. We have seen enough. We were in Qatar last month. We were in Dubai as well. So everywhere people are talking about, yes, we don't agree with that. So what's next? And that's the time that we start talking about community university. But before I get into the community university and somehow get inputs and supports and how can we move on together, to those who are not that familiar of the detail of what are actually being measured in, at least in our two main performance appraisal or performance assessment, there is STARA and MIRA. So you can see on the screen, those are the components that are being measured. And usually we'll come up with the questions that how is this relevant to the role of university, as to how Prof. Sharon's mentioning about the well-being and etc. But very ironic, despite of all this critique for so many years, is still there, like ranking. How much we criticize is always knocking at our door, and every year we'll be talking about it in August or September. The debate will be going on 1-2 weeks, and then that goes, the cycle goes, yeah. And as to our rector, I think he's been talking about this for the past 20 years. So that's why he's pushing for an alternative. What are we offering? We tried last time in 2010 on alternative university appraisal, but it was not that successful. So just quickly, so this is what in SETARA. So you would see the component, the parameters, and definitely there are areas of improvement. And I was informed that even SETARA is under revisions, because we know with the minister's inclinations or minister's statement that ranking is not the only thing that we should be looking for. So he's been asking the department relevance to it to revise. Next slide. How do I move here? And MIRA, this is the research university, and these are the component. Again, you will see a lot of overlapping, but the same critics, yeah. We don't deny the need to look at these components, but the ideas, the purpose, the actual things that happen on the ground, that the unintended consequence is the one that we worry about. Yeah, when Prof. Munirah was mentioning about scopus and threat, this is still what's happening now, especially to the young lecturers, and this is what we are lost in. That even a master student, the PhD students is under pressure, which we don't have this kind of pressure before. We just enjoy doing our PhD, but suddenly now we got to worry about this. And not only that, we got to pay for that. And we got to pay to access to that article, which is very funny and ironic, but that's how it is. And that's how systemic these neoliberalisms are, that you will proceed that way. Next slide. I just want, so given this, parameters that is there, and again, I must inform and share that even MIRA is under revisions as well, under the previous minister. So I hope, we really hope that the new minister will share the same sentiment and also the same aspiration, that we should not be taking this ranking thing as an obsession. Or I would totally agree with Prof. Munirah again, that discard many of the components that we know very well has impacted a lot on our life, academic life in the campus. The reason why I share this is that it's about time that for us to mainstream the wave of many other platforms that are being put forward. Some already in practice, some are already mainstreaming. The kind of measurement that is outside the conventional Shanghai, the time educations, and also QS. So these are among those has been mentioned and highlighted in several conferences. Yeah? If I can recall, I mean, if I may recall what are the main component. More than our rank, these platforms, this initiative, it recognize the importance of ranking, but to a certain extent. So they do somehow agree with that ranking, but they are providing the plus point. So you come into this more than our rank, and then you have an opportunity to somehow report what is beyond the reported one in QS of time education. So you can talk about your visions and missions and etc. in that kind of platforms. And U multi-rank is among this is one of the most mainstream one, that it provide a transparency and recognizing the diversity. So it give again a bit of ranking as well, but by discipline, by degree, meaning that you get more specific one, more disaggregated one, rather than the general generalizations of the performance one particular institution. African quality is something that is used and go against the agreed criteria, meaning that they agree upon what they are doing, and then we assess based on that, meaning that is a very institutionalized, very contextualized. And DORA, I think among us as a researcher, is very common one. But there is a bit of concern about DORA because it's still talking about business performance. I mean, how do we deploy the research? But still, at the end, we can say it from neoliberalist perspective. The same goes to Coalition for Advanced Research Assessment. But what is more interesting is to have this. This was discussed, I think it was in Qatar, in Doha, in IAU meeting, that Humane Metrics Initiative. This one I find is interesting because it's really talking about the intangibles. It's really talking about the values. And there are 5, I think, if not mistaken, the equity, the openness, the collegiality, the soundness, and the community contributions. So these are among the platforms that I thought would be interesting for us to start talking about and advocating, so that we can slowly get rid of the discourse on time-based education, etc. And we've got another one that we are working together with and use their framework as a base for our community. There is towards the European Framework for Community Engagement. And this is, I guess, second after U multi-rank. So among the European community, they get, I mean, this platform get a lot of tractions on community engagement. And the one that I'll be talking about a bit more specific is Communiversity. And this Communiversity, will have a video on this, but basically, is a project that also have a grant from the JPT, from the ministry, to work on the appraisal systems that will be looking specifically at community engagement. Maybe because we thought that we've been pushing and been dictated a lot by the industrial and business need, but why not we try on community and see that from there, there will be other things that will trickle, will be cascaded, so that it will really bring back the role of universities, what's supposed to be the real functions of universities. The interesting part about this is that it's not just IIUM, is a project collaboratively with other 4 universities. And each of these 4 universities are working on their own areas that there's already been proven to be excellence in that area. For example, UNIMAP, they're working on transdisciplinary thing, and they are now working on the parameters, the measurement that need to be there. And in these measurements, we are talking about sustainability as a main component, sejahtera as a main component, very local aspect of what need to be there, rather than using the conventional one. The same goes to UPM. They're working on transformations, community, and leaderships, and they have been chosen for they're chosen for this because they have proven projects for this. Yeah, and UTM is another one, collaborative institutional collaborations, and UTM, and IIUM is working on responsible research and innovations. So now we are at the stage whereby we will be submitting the final report and proposing this to be piloted among the Malaysian universities, and see how it goes and get some critics before we get into the international pilot. Yeah, so let's see a video that will maybe give a better illustrations of what we're doing, and also very much linked to what Prof. Zaharom and Prof. Munirah has mentioned, all the critics, and how do we plan to move on using this Communiversity framework. We get the audio.
Challenge planetary dimensions to existence. In this unprecedented time of crisis,
I have to off audio. Oops.
Scrutinize the current purpose of education and how universities should deal with the grand challenge of planetary dimensions to existential
We have shown this video in Doha and received quite good comment, and some of them agree to work on this project. Speaker to speaker. Okay. Ya, seperti tanya.
In this unprecedented time of crises, it is time to scrutinize the current purpose of education and how universities should deal with the grand challenge of planetary dimensions to existential well-being. Existing university ranking systems fail to capture the ethos of education, particularly in addressing sustainability issues. Metrics, as it generally is, tend to overshadow a university's dedication to environmental stewardship, community engagement, and social inclusivity. This hinders our ability to recognize institutions driving positive change towards real-world situations. Recently, a UNU-IIDH-convened expert group released an independent report on university ranking, noting the alarming issues with the approach adopted. Marian Lloyd, one of the independent experts, emphasizes the perverse incentives of current rankings. Short-sighted obsession over rankings can be harmful, as it could jeopardize the bigger picture. Mainstream ranking institutions tend to be biased, inaccurate, unreliable, and oftentimes promote short-term solutions and causes educational institutions to neglect the main objectives of education. It is often commercially driven, manipulative, and is plagued with conflicts of interest. Former Malaysian Minister of Higher Education, Khalid Nordin, calls for a more flexible approach to education rather than having one-size-fitting-all, as it is integral in being future resilient. Ellen Hazelcorn calls for a more holistic, equitable, and context-sensitive measuring method, as excellence can be defined in different ways. There is a need for a paradigm shift to sustainability and holistic development approaches, and elements that contribute significantly to real-life impact in how we assess the impacts of universities. Consequently, there has been a global shift towards measuring more than the conventional aspects of universities. However, there is a need for a new model, which consists of 5 fundamentals that are more reflective of the essence of universities. Community transformation and leadership, looking into effective governance, engagement processes, and results-oriented strategies is one. Institutional collaboration, with a focus on the 5 Ps quintuple helix model, and working in the quadruple helix collaboration approach is another. Responsible research and innovation that promotes inclusivity, authenticity, community orientation, consideration of power dynamics, incorporation of integrity is next, followed by integration of knowledge, ensuring relevance to explore social spaces, employ transdisciplinarity of expertise, and having living labs including for indigenous culture. And finally, sustainable entrepreneurship to produce social innovations committed towards sustainability. This not only shaped educated individuals, but an active generation of contributors to societal progress. Communiversity has garnered the support of various academicians who highlight the importance of shifting our focus from previous measures to a new paradigm of social institutions. It is time for universities to redefine success. For this, we need to embrace a new era of communiversity. Together, we can shape a future where universities are not just institutions of learning, but beacons of sustainable social, economic, environmental nexus of the future.
Thank you very much, Prof. Zainal. And I think that video, is it up on IIUM's website? It should be.
Not yet.
Not yet, soon. So it's good to note that we are having such at IIUM and we are pioneering such, inshallah. So we have concluded the, not concluded, we have basically listened to all the speakers of the first panel discussion, and we open the floor for discussions. So it can be among the panelists themselves, or the audience who are here can perhaps ask any question. You may also direct your question to any specific panelist, or if you want to leave it general, that is also fine. So we have about 15 minutes for this session, 10 to 15 minutes, inshallah, for this session. And then each of the speaker will be wrapping up in 3 minutes each. So yes, I open the floor. Yes.
Bismillah. For the panels, I'm right behind you, Rom. For the panels and also those who are attending, I have a very simple question. You have outlined the downside of GUR. You have explained this a little bit. I just want you to imply your explanation. Why is it that the degree of buying in is still high on GUR?
Perhaps Dr. Sharifah would like to respond.
I don't have a one direct answer to that. The lure of the language of the market and economy is very strong, it's very seductive. So there's also the idea of feeling insecure because many universities around the world are not the top, right? I mean, we are not Harvards and Oxfords and Cambridges. We naturally, there's a natural tendency to feel that we are insecure, we need to become better. This feeling of being a developing country, after all, the majority of countries around the world are developing. The majority of countries are not in the global north. So there is this colonial baggage mindset that is among us. So we think the better thing to do is why not follow, because eventually we will get there. So I'm sorry, I can't turn around, but to answer that question, your question, I think that is the reason why we still take part in it, because we are convinced. They've done a very good job convincing us. To put it in very simple language, they've done a good job in convincing us that we are lousy, that we need to be as good as they are. So in order to become as good as we are, you got to pay. And the only way to do it is participate annually, and in the hope that you have to believe that you will become better, if not next year, in 5 years or in 10 years. And look at the way our own politicians entice the Malaysian public and parents about our universities. We say we want to build the Harvard of the North, or the Cambridge of Kelantan. I mean, we are using metaphors based on the idea that only those great universities matter. But we can have another debate and conference about this very topic that I just introduced. But basically, that is my answer. Maybe the other two speakers can chip in.
Yes, Rosina.
Yeah. It was the same question that was posted, put up in Doha, in IU, which is a big conference. And the speaker, I mean, one of the speakers saying, his response, stop seeing that there's a strong buying into it. Because in that hall, almost everyone against it. So who is actually buying into that? So if you stop speaking that language or that tone of language, then that ranking people, that side will start become silent and start speaking the language that we are developing another one, we are going for another one. So that's the way forward, because it's quite obvious that at the end of the day, the argument like what Prof. Munirah says, they want to be the Harvard, etc. And then Harvard deans himself, Harry Lewis, come up with an argument that their graduates are without soul. So it's very ironic, but yet we're still speaking that's who actually promotes this. It may be to a certain extent ourselves. So stop using, stop referring to that. Yeah, that's my response.
Our Prof. Zaharom, Prof.
I agree with both speakers. But I think there's something more there. It's not only about stopping using the language. We continuously talk about wanting to stop using that language. Unfortunately, I think this we that we're talking about is we in Malaysia, so to speak, we in the Malaysian education sphere, are made up of diverse groups, right? And it would seem as though those of us who are concerned are saying, we stop it, we look for alternatives. We talk about community, we talk about looking at the community, a different set of criteria, right? But on the other hand, you have governments, politicians, like you said, who may say, okay, we'll talk about that. But at the same time, they are saying, you know, we must play the game, so to speak. Yeah, we must compete at the international level. Once they start talking about competing at the international level, they start talking about competing on the same terms that are already determined. So I think this we that we're talking about is problematic. Yeah, there are those of us who are really concerned. There are those of us who want to play lip service to, you know, problematic academics, for example, who want to come up with alternatives when all we want to do is sell our universities to get as many foreign students as we can, to get foreign universities to come here to become the educational hub, and so on and so forth. So I think priorities, the sincerity of those priorities, need to be looked at, primarily because the way that universities are structured in Malaysia, like I said, you can't run away from the politics, and we must push back as far as those things are concerned before we can start talking about coming up with alternatives that benefit our communities, in that real sense, where universities really play an important role in the development of communities and not just think in terms of getting students becoming richer, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yes, Dr. Jasmine.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jasmine. I'm an academic from Kuliah of Economics, Department of Economics. During the registration for this program, I have, I think, written a few questions, like 2 or 3. I think one of them, if I still recall, it was quite some time ago, is relating to how do you perceive the quality of education of universities in Malaysia to be in the coming future, knowing that you have been in academia for many years, for decades, and you have witnessed and you know your colleagues from your faculty or from other faculty, and you know how they work, you know the work ethic they have. So in that regard, how do you see it unfolding in the way of communiversity? What's the probability of reaching there? And do you perceive any cognitive dissonant kind of and contradictory actions in relation to the things that can obviously be improved, but are not being worked at, and energy is wasted on communication about us versus them, or criticizing maybe them, while not at the same time willing to acknowledge that we indirectly take many of the great benefits, that they indeed have, the other universities, the highly ranked universities. So in a way, while we criticize, at the same time, we are utilizing much of it, which is not wrong, but then that appears to be much cognitive dissonance. So anyway, I'll just stop here, and hopefully you were able to grasp my question, the perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. Who would like to respond first? Of Zainab?
I would start with that. Which definitions of quality that we are referring to? If we look at how Times and QS or Shanghai define what quality is, I think we may not fit. The qualities of our academic may not fit into that. Why? Because I think at this university we are in the transition stage of like moving or redefining that quality. It's not about those publications, corpus 1, 2, and 3. It's more than that. And we know we talk about sustainability, we talk about sejahtera. So I guess we have to give more time for that to take place, so that we allow that definitions of qualities to be then the one that we subscribe to, and allow that to govern, allow that to be the culture here. And how do we do that? I think this is why we put up community university. But I do agree that there's a room of improvement there. Yeah, and this transition is challenging in a way that we, like what Prof. Zaharom says, that out there the policy, the government is still in a way still talking that language. But to be pragmatic in this community university thing, what we do is that what we suggest is, when we present the updates, is that it is to be integrated into MIRA, so that the energies is not wasted, and we are slowly moving to a better direction, to better North Star, whatever. So, for example, the community university part will be included into G6A and B, meaning that what is the contributions of university to the community. So you will see slowly these integrations of this new kind of like performance appraisal into the current one. So slowly it will come up, it will turn to be something else. So that's my response to that.
Prof. Zainal mentioned Myra, so perhaps Dr. Sharifah would like to comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. My take is a little bit different, but it will meet your take at the junction. I would say we can't talk about quality yet until we address the holistic problem we have with education in general, which means we have to tackle the quality of our teachers in the primary school, secondary school, right up to universities. Because after all, these are the people that the children will graduate from secondary school. Some will decide to become lecturers, join the university. They become that quality. The lecturers, the students who have gone through the school system become the quality of academia in the universities. Obviously, we've been having horrible quality over the decades. So, of course, these lecturers now who are in the public university system, you can't expect them to suddenly transform and talk about communiversity and improve the quality. So we have a huge task at hand. So this is a conversation that needs to go hand in hand. I don't know how it's going to be done, but there are enough brains around to give input. Politics, again, is a problem. The political interference we have in education in general is ridiculous, because you can't have a quality primary school education when teachers and headmasters are worried about the spoons and the forks that students are using, whether they have to segregate the spoons and the forks and the glasses, the drinking glasses or cups. So, what I'm saying is our priorities are totally gone awry. They've gone haywire. So it's a very big question you've asked, But that's why I say the holistic approach will then meet your approach. It's a long time process. I don't think I'm going to be alive when it even begins. But the point is, start the conversation now.
And I think that is what we're doing today, starting the conversation. And Professor Zaharom painted a very bleak picture of the higher education landscape in Malaysia. And Dr. Jasmine is asking, what's the future going to be like?
You don't want to hear what I think about the future. No, but to address this in a kind of more constructive sense, I guess, 2018, 2019, 2020, that was a time when certainly many of us were very concerned about academia, were driving for certain changes. Yeah, one of those major changes was AUKU. I'll relate all this in a while. Some people said we can move things around within AUKU, drop a few things, and I and others said, forget it. You dismantle the whole bloody thing, yeah, because the whole legacy of it all, why it was set up, is problematic. So you must start up with essentially a new act, if you must, and that's what we work towards. Similarly, when I hear Professor saying, Myra is there, right? So we'll have to somehow fit things within Myra. I think, did I read you correctly? That the ideas here that within, yeah. So I would argue that you dismantle Myra. Myra has been a problem right from the beginning for many of us. We know there are problems there. Why do you want to work within that kind of framework, yeah, with the problems that are there? When I know I have an answer to it. I know your answer to that would be you have to essentially negotiate this kind of situation, right? But I think you have to negotiate from a position of strength. Yeah, we are the so-called experts. We have to tell them that's rubbish, right? And we've come up, we got an alternative way of doing this, which we feel which we sincerely believe will be successful. So I think this whole fitting things, the whole new ideas into old shells, so to speak, like fitting things into AUKU is problematic. It's really, that's how I feel. Okay, so the other thing is that I feel on the one hand you're saying rankings, the government and whoever are saying, and also some vice chancellors are saying rankings not that important lah, you know. But at the same time, you have others who are still chasing those rankings. So this chasing, this whole, what you call it, prioritizing of the chasing of rankings must stop, right? You can't have, people having two different sort of ideas at the same time. The message must be clear, I feel. The message and not confusing. If you're saying, rankings is a problem, then address the problem and stop wanting to be part of that ranking. Say, what is the cost? Then consider, you say there are those costs. Are those costs short term? Are they long term? Are we if we try to still do that, going to have problems in the long term? And I think we will have problems in the long term. Yeah, it has to be addressed. It has to be those impediments have got to be removed, yeah. We cannot apply band-aids or bandages to the very real problems that we've got. And like Prof. Munirah was saying, at the end of the day, we cannot see higher education divorced from the whole education system. Yeah, as they say, garbage in, garbage out, right? So we have to be careful about nurturing the people who are, when we are dead, who are going to be taking over, right? So I think there is a potential, as always, there's always a potential for a good future, right? I think it was Gramsci who talked about the pessimism of the intellect and the optimism of the will, yeah. And I think we have to use that to move us forward.
Thank you, Prof. Zaharom. We have Isham with us today. Isham left. Oh, yeah. Is he still here? He was here. Normally he has something to say. So perhaps the last question before we wrap up. Okay, please.
Assalamualaikum and good morning still. I think my question is more, I am objective or more to IIM University. I mean, in terms of, it's good that I hear about not using ranking or whether we're going to back to what the purpose of the university was established. I think I just want to bring on this topic of restoring the ummah. So how can this community university thinks of how would it approach how is it going to be addressed in towards the university original establishment, because that was how IIM was established first. I think that's all. Thank you.
This Prof. Zainal.
The way community university being proposed is based on 5 pillars. That 5 pillars is used as a platforms to reorientate the functions of university, and these functions will then be based on addressing the issues of unsustainability. Right? So and sustainable development is the second missions of the university. Meaning it's addressing on sustainability. If we want to be specific, how does it bring back the role of universities? I mean the role of IIUM. And we see very well that the missions of university, that is humanizing education through sustainable development and maqasid Sharia, is to be done through that reorientations of function history through that 5 pillars. Change, knowledge integration, for example, community engagement, leadership, transformation, sustainable finance, sustainable entrepreneurship. So those are the components that will then be governing the activities on the ground of the universities. It's not about just publication, number 1, number 2, Scopus 1 to know. You may even publish like what Prof. Munirah has been doing the public columns. So that is counted. That is one is encouraged. Instead of universities is asking for the KPI, then we go to the language that we've been talking about, the KIP. So I thought, and I hope that is quite clear cascading of how that 5 components is to be then translated into our APAR or KIP or teaching, research, community engagement and research thing, and teaching learning, of course. So the 5 pillars are the one that will be driving the change internally.
Okay, thank you. Isham, do you have anything to say? Sure. He's keeping it for the second panel discussion.
Not for now.
Okay.
Give Hassan a hard time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I think now we can wrap up. So each panelist perhaps can wrap up in 3 minutes, basically concluding remarks for each panelist. So we'll start with Rom.
Yeah, 3 minutes. Having heard the conversation this morning, having heard the other points of view and having heard the questions that were raised, I still feel that whether you want to set up a system based on this notion of community or any system that essentially is quite different from the whole ranking system, which I think most of us are convinced is problematic. Within the context of Malaysia, certainly, I think, if you look at our own country, we first need to address the question of power. Yeah. If we don't address the question of power, we're essentially kidding ourselves into thinking that we can develop all these kind of things and make them very successful over a very short period of time. I don't think we're kidding ourselves into thinking that that's the case. But what I'm saying is that every one of us might think that we have an alternative way which is of more value, which provides more value to us as a community, to us as a society. Yeah. But remember, I feel we need to remember in relation to power 2 things. 1, the role of politics in higher education, and 2, the role of the marketplace in higher education. And not only the role, the pressures put forward by politics and the market on higher education. Yeah, as long as we don't address that, and I think that would be essentially the what in the room, the elephant in the room, politics and economics, the neoliberal structure in economics, and address that in a very concrete, critical way. I don't think we will be achieving much in a short period of time. There is a need for a more radical approach, which addresses power, as I said. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Zaharom. Dr. Sharifah Munirah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's in the same light. I would like to say that nothing can be done in this country unless there is political will. And also, I'll put it in less nice language. Basically, there's still too much political interference. There's too much corruption, which is why politics, education, and the business community go hand in hand, and it has ruined education. Okay, so the idea that education or universities is linked to corporation or rather big business and profit is very much a part of our political elite culture. So let's address that. So I'm not saying that what we are doing here is a waste of time, but change takes place when you keep addressing the issue. You don't run away from the main focus, which is we need to tackle our political culture and address the problem we have with our leaders. Again, going back to how our leaders are produced, they are produced because the way they are because they go to the kind of schools we have. So it's chicken or egg discussion, but the point is we got to start somewhere. Start with the chicken or the egg, but start somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharifah. And lastly, Prof. Zainal.
I just want to say that been involved in this ranking thing since 2005, but I thought now is the best window that we have, referring to the political will, because I think this the previous minister, Khalid Nordin, is the first minister that give that kind of room for us to be a bit more brave or to be more clear and rooms for maneuvering on suggesting something new and revising and move forward. And that's the only motivation that I have doing this. So I hope the new minister would carry the same. I'm just repeating myself because I thought the global landscape is talking about this. And if we can move on with this, inshallah, there will be, like what Prof. Munirah said again, that something has started, like what conversation that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have concluded the first round of panel discussion. I thank Professor Zaharom, Dr. Sharifah Munirah Alatas, and also Prof. Zainal for agreeing to become panelists on this panel session. So we'll take a break for 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and we'll begin at 11 because we started a bit late. And please do help yourselves to the macaroni goreng, if I'm not mistaken, and also the kueh mueh. Yeah, so this is our culture of having food in between breaks, inshallah. And then we'll proceed with the second panel discussion, which will begin at 11 o'clock. So we have with us Prof. Dr. Asma. Thank you for joining us, Prof. And Dr. Hassanuddin, our previous former professor at the School of Economics and Management Sciences, and also Prof. Dr. Rosina from KICT. I'm not sure whether they're going to play the devil's advocate in the next panel discussion. We will see how the discussion goes. So thank you. We'll take a break for about 6 minutes and we'll return at 11 o'clock.
What if the get done? So nice looking vintage.
Yeah,
It doesn't work.
So now it's only now, but the saying you can do it without. It's still water. But this was good. It's one, not mine.
Okay, it's 11 a.m. So hopefully we can start because we began late in the morning. So I will pass the floor to Dr. Muhammad Azani Saad from the Kuliah of Education. If I'm not mistaken, he's also the Deputy Dean for Postgraduate at the Kuliah. So the floor is yours, Dr. Azani, to moderate the second panel discussion. It's all on YouTube. You can watch it later also, Dr. Jasmine.
Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. First of all, I would like to extend my thank you to Dr. Adli for moderating the earlier sessions, as well as on behalf of the ASA for organizing this particular discussion. First of all, my name is Muhammad Azani Saad. I'm from Kuliah of Education, Assistant Professor of Linguistics there. At the same time, I'm the Deputy Dean of Postgraduate and Responsible Research there. It is actually my honor to be sitting just few seats away from these prominent speakers that I'm very happy to moderate. In this particular second round of discussions, we will continue to discuss on the main topic, which is to rank or not to rank. That is the questions that I also have been asking myself for quite some time, because for my PhD, I graduated from and is very much into ranking. So anytime when people ask me, oh, you graduated from that must be very good. But it made me wonder that, okay, is the graduating from the University of Malaya, I'm not saying the University of Malaya, it's just an example, not to say, I love all universities, University of Malaya included, especially IUM. But it's just when it comes to these kind of questions, whether the prestige that comes with the ranking is associated to the number of the university or the contributions that you want to make with the knowledge that you have acquired. So that is something that I always wonder, whether the prestige is associated or is affiliated to what actually. So I would hope that personally, I hope that this kind of issues, one of these many issues would be addressed. And I'm sure it will be addressed because we have three prominent speakers that, again, I'm very honored to introduce. Their accomplishments actually is long, and Dr. Adli has given me, you have to introduce them not more than 5 minutes, which I think I will just have to speed up on these kind of things. The first speaker that we have is Dr. Hasanuddin Abdul Aziz. Dr. Hasanuddin is a former professor of finance from the School of Economics and Management Sciences, IUM. He is also the former chair, scientific research chair in Islamic Finance, Ifat University in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He obtained his Bachelor of Economics, specializing in business administration from University of Malaya, and later on Master in Business Administration from University of Rochester in New York. And another master's in science, specializing in policy economics, and later PhD in financial economics from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, USA. He served as the director of IUM Graduate School of Management, also was the dean for the Kuliah and Director of Quality Assurance Unit, where he has assisted the university to attain the ISO Quality Management Certification, as well as the Quality Awards at the state and national level. So welcome, Prof. Hasanuddin, to the discussion. The next speaker that I would like to introduce is Professor Datin Dr. Rosina Othman, who currently is the professor at the Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology. She was also the visiting professor and excellent assessor for the Management Science University and was formerly adjunct professor at Swinburne University of Technology, Sarawak campus, and also is the visiting professor at the Hanoi University of Culture, Vietnam. Professor Rosina specialized in information retrieval, semantic technology, knowledge management, and bibliometrics. I'm not sure what semantic technology is, even though I taught semantics for linguistics, but probably it's different. She served as the Director for Alumni and Career Services Divisions and the focal point IIUM for graduate employability at the Ministry. Professor Roslina has Bachelor in Business Administration, Finance, with a minor in Finance and Economics from Eastern Washington University, Washington, Master in Library and Information Science from IIUM, and PhD in Information Retrieval from University of Wales. And finally, Professor Emerita Dr. Asma Ismail, who needs no introductions, but still I have to introduce Prof. Prof currently is the Ibn Sina Chair for Medicine at the IUM and the Consultative and Anti-Corruption Panel for the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission. She is the immediate past president of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia and National Science, Technology and Innovation Advisor. She holds many firsts. First female Vice Chancellor of University Science Islam Malaysia and University Science Malaysia. First female Director General of Higher Education. First female President of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. First female to be appointed as the Chairperson of the Malaysian Qualifications Agency. And the first woman to be the National Science Advisor to the country. She holds Bachelor of Science in Biology from the University of Nevada, USA, Masters in Microbiology from Indiana University, and PhD in Cellular and Molecular Biology from University of Nevada as well. Welcome, Prof. Okay, without any delay, let us start our second round of discussions, where I will invite Dr. Hasanuddin first to speak. No, we go by turn. We go by turn, Prof. Okay, I would like to invite Dr. Hasanuddin. It's okay, Prof.
No problem.
To be talking about ranking and reputations. So the format will be the same, where each speaker will be given 15 minutes. Okay, Doctor, if you're ready there or here, if you wish. Okay, if you're comfortable there, then please, no worries.
All right. You want to talk about the format? What, unlimited? 50. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My panelists, fellow panelists, Prof. Adli, President of ASA, and all colleagues present. Good morning and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So when the ASA invited for me to give some thoughts to rank or not to rank, the first thing which crossed my mind is whose call should it be to rank or not to rank? Shakespeare punya. So the topic they gave to me was on ranking and reputation. So to start off with, the question which I asked, whose call is it? Is it the university's call, or is it we go and get all those ranking entities, invite them to our home to look at us, and how does it go about? So I've been involved in this ranking since 2005 when I was the Director of Quality Assurance. And at that time, the whole government, the minister at that time was all for it. They want all university to be involved. And during that time, there were 5 universities in Malaysia, which was in the QS Times ranking. And there were a few from Turkey, from Iran, not that many in the Muslim world. And the then Minister of Education, tak payah mention nama, brought it to the attention of the Perjumpaan Menteri Pendidikan, the OIC. So OIC took it up the other minute, that a committee to be formed to look into the possibilities of getting at least 20 universities in the Muslim world to be part of the top universities, the QS ranking. So a committee was formed, a lot of deliberation, 5 countries represented in the main core, and I was representing the government of Malaysia, and there were Iran, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Pakistan. So there were a lot of discussions. Why is it that the Muslim world, at that point of time, Muslim world universities, not only they are cukup sifat untuk the rank, tapi even their existence, the basic quality assurances was also not in place in many Muslim world universities in Africa and so on. So OIC took it up, and there was a lot of deliberation in accordance to the world ranking. And then we saw that some of those criteria is not good enough for our Muslim world university. So there were changes, and all those SDGs which we are talking today, back in 2005, 2006, we also did incorporate on the weightages or criteria. And the Moroccan guy is a mathematician. How the weights are being introduced, everything, all the formulas was already there. And then it was presented in the council at OIC. And then what happened was that when they test run a mock kind of thing with objective ranking based on publications, so happened there's none Saudi universities was there. So the Saudi representative immediately protest because Iranian was also putting up a lot of their university, because based upon the criteria which we have, I can even show you all these criteria, they stood in. But the Saudis, none was there, and they say we cannot face the royalties with this kind of ranking of universities, which none of us is there. So then they say, rather than ranking, can we do rating? I say no problem. As long as it is quantified, you can do rating or you can do ranking or whatever. And then when the Deputy Minister of the Education of Saudi agreed to the rating, immediate that night, the minister already gave him a real, dia marah sungguh lah. Sebab rating tu pun, Saudi universities are not appearing very good stuff. So there was also a fight between them. And last kali, they used ISESCO, which was the Saudi leadership, to get the OIC people who did. They say OIC shouldn't be doing all this. This is under the education culture kind of thing. So there was a lot of politics in it. And the thing was ultimately from ranking, rating, then they say best practices. So they asked the committee to adopt the best practices and go and talk around. So Alhamdulillah, IDB bagi banyak funds for us to go around to talk to the Muslim world universities on academic quality capacity building. But that paper of OIC, 10-year program of action plan, 2005. So today it will be, berapa umur dia? 18 tahun. Teenager. And we will be having a say. When we were involved in this ranking at OIC, QS people will always come and talk to us, very nice. Mandy representative from Singapore, because they were very scared that once Muslim world is taken away, at least QS and so on and so forth, now from my hindsight, it's more of a scam. It's not actually something which, financial scam we tahu. Tapi ini lambat sikit lah, walaupun kita ni orang pintar, tapi lambat sikit nak faham that scam. Tapi we, at one time when University Malaya, there is my alma mater, but when you go into the University Malaya, when they were one of the top, you will see the bunting everywhere. That means you are endorsing, you are inviting them to be into your, welcoming them into your homes. So that's why the question is, ranking per se has got no issue. The ranking per se is something which always will be there. Since we were born, when we go to the class also, we will be ranked. Even nowadays, going to the standard 1 also, you need to take the exam and they will rank and categorize and then put you where you should be. But the contention is not the ranking. The contention is the entity doing the ranking. So if you see, and recently also, now Koreans are saying that there's a lot of Anglo Eurocentric kind of results, which is not helping them. And also East Asia, for example, the internationalization, it is more favoring the English speaking and so on and so forth. But the point here is the contention with regard to who is doing this ranking. So for us at that time in 2005, 2006, when OIC wanted to adopt this, we were trying to fit in, but as you know, Muslim world, OIC, when you see the minutes, last time kita pergi minutes, now the ranking of OIC, I tak tahu still appearing in the minutes of the OIC. Kalau you tengok the liberation of Al-Quds, it is still appearing, memang betul. Sebab Al-Quds dah tahun 70-an sampai sekarang belum di-liberate. Dan OIC ranking pun ada di situ. The last one I saw lah, but now I'm not attending any of those things. That they will put, that we reaffirm the best practices to Muslim world universities. So I just talk of, because I did research something else, but I think the thing which I want to bring forward is we have to have our like-minded people, but of international standard, dan jujur, to come up with the criteria, which we have done. Tak ada banyak yang berbeza. Tetapi the political will to accept that let us go together, itu jarang sekali wujud. Everybody now still Eurocentric. Anything coming from them is the priority which we should do. Maybe memang is true enough, because the way they have projected themselves, positioning them, marketing themselves, this seems to be better off than what we can do. But the political will to get things done in a nature that it suits us should have already transpired as of now. But then we are still grouping and looking what we are doing and how you want to go about it is still being a big question mark. So as I mentioned to you, there's a lot of things, from ranking. Before ranking, there is also the traditional kind of teaching, di mana prestige. Like for example, in the context of Malaysia, for example, the early universities like University of Malaya has got its own prestige, its own ranking. But ranking comes about and quantify it objectively from their perspective. We can also argue that the objective assessment, was it there? Like the QS, for example, 40% peer. You ask them, who are your peer? There was one time they had in Hong Kong, the minister at that time, they say all the university to participate. The Hong Kong QS exhibition was a Malaysian affair. Penuh dengan booth kita, and the minister, diantarlah seorang-seorang jumpa. Minister pun very happy from morning till night. So I was feeling like, I say, hey, where are the peers? They said they will come. At the end, in the evening, they said there were 3 peers who came. But actually, the peer kind of things is very secretive among themselves only. So it is 40%. What do you expect? It's not objective, but they say it's objective. So these are things which, from their perspective, it works. But why did we go and endorse and accepted them? That is the big question. Like, for example, Saudi. They also want to be a position. What they did now, they went and affiliated. Even though I was holding a chair there, I am innocent. But they also got a lot of points also for that. So itu cara mereka buat. Tapi last kali dia kata it should be first affiliation, not second. Back in the West, in the UK, they say, okay lah, you're a well-known professor, you make it first, Saudi. But actually, what did Saudi gain? Nothing much. But this is what happening in the Muslim world. Why I'm talking about Muslim world is because I was entrusted to do that, being one of the top 5 to work it out. Then after that, presented to the ministry. Ini masih lagi rahsia lagi. Masih rahsia. Well accepted at the ministry. They look, oh ini boleh buat. Boleh dibuat. Tetapi the political will to go through at the international level was not there, because the conflicts where you see among nations will be reflected in whatever good things which we do. Ada masa lagi? Alright. So basically, when I approach it from that angle, so this is not something new. As I mentioned to you, if we have embarked on it, we are 18 years old. Together with a very strong foundation, organization like OIC, with good funding like IDB, and then we can have Al Jazeera, for like the Times to publish our work, a concerted effort, and we will be projecting ourselves with all the funds and everything. But the political will among ourselves is not there. So in the context of Malaysia, as what has been mentioned, the politics in education is very, very heavy, you know. So the intervention itself and the public universities, the private universities, it is just another game, you know. This is the Western concept of classification and categorization, and in finance we call the greed and the fear. So in education pun sama je, universities ni. If they are not ranked, they are not going to approach and be nice to QS. You know, they fear they will not be there. And if they are not there, private university will be scared they will not get the students. And public university, international student will not come to you if you are not internationally ranked. At one time, UIA does not need all this. Even other universities were ranked, we have got a special position in the Muslim world, in the hearts of our people. All our students will be going around telling, come to UIA. That was during my time, good times, when I was in the postgraduate dean. Tak ada masalah sangat. Tapi sekarang masalah besar. Sebab international student, and then those who are getting scholarship from government, they are asking, are you ranked? At one point of time, not ranked also, even you can get for engineering funds from them also. But today it's not the case. So all this has happened, but still now how to go about back to look into this ranking business, especially from the Muslim world. You know, you can't go and beat them, however good you are. You know, they will still have. Sekarang who is the first? Harvard, Stanford, Princeton. They play around with that game only. They no need to do anything. You know, NUS at one time was very close to QS during the beginning, but later NUS also tak main sangat. So what they all do nowadays is they will have a very good website with all their information. If you want, you go and get it down. Tapi kita punya website pun kita tak tahu lah. Kalau kita tengok kita punya website, kita dapat information, itu besar problem. That's why last time I told, have it done. Do what you are supposed to do. Make the breakthrough. You are already there. You know, don't play with these ranking agencies. But as from the quality perspective, ranking agencies will have to fit in from the capitalist world, like private sector. They don't lose anything. They pay. I'm not sure whether I can say they pay or not, but they want to sue me also. Where to sue? You know, if they pay and get a good position, and out of that cost benefit analysis, they got benefit. You want to talk about moral? Forget about it, lah. All right, because they are private sector. They have to survive and sustain. Well, what about the public sector? You know, why is it that you want to position yourself, make breakthroughs in R&D, in research, in commercialization, and so on and so forth? That is how you should be trying to attain your reputation, rather than going around with these ranking agencies. On the other hand, I'm not saying that their existence is futile, but their existence is a purpose. And in the capitalist world, that is how it works. You know, today they put fear, or Y2K, for example, they put fear because money. You know, how to make money. So you need to give the QS, he's a family-owned kind of people coming to do business. You know, but that time we, academician, we embrace them also, because we thought, oh, ranking, globalization, ranking is very important because they want to have this globalized world, how to know you are good. But ultimately, they want to look into standardization. All our good things will not be projected. So, to rank or not to rank is not our call. You know, when I came back from Saudi, the management asked me to go and talk to the president, Prof. Tan Sri Rais. Because at that time, UIA have made minuted in the top management, in the board, that we are not going to cooperate at all. The agencies, ranking agencies. So I told them, what am I supposed to go and tell Tan Sri? No, you go and tell her that To rank or not to rank is not our call. So I went and told Tan Sri, said, no, we don't want to participate. Then I said, Tan Sri, you like it or not, if they want to do, they will do. You know? And so they sometimes will send to us to rectify, verify the facts. That's all. If you go and tell you don't want to verify, fine, no problem. But if you want to say you don't want to verify, make sure you have invested very well in your web, the source of the information. Tapi your source of information pun tak betul, and then you what can you expect from us? You know, so you can't stop them. This is business. You know, you want to talk about ranking, it's a big business. Sometimes if we are involved, we also will be involved because business, you know, profit. And at that time, 2005, 2006, sometimes I see also, saya pun terkejut sebab everybody embrace to this, nak be rank. You know, USM tak tahu lah, masa tu siapa, tapi banting-banting keluar juga. So, we cannot be saying that, you know, they to stop or what. It can happen, cannot happen. That's what has been mentioned. Criteria can change, but who you are has to be there, teaching, publication. And that's why the first thing which OIC came out with such strict was that publication did. Itu nasib baik Malaysian University banyak tapi university those major players were not there. Tetapi today, tak tahu lah, proud to say or not, from none, there are 33 Saudi universities listed in QS, but I don't know at what cost. Very big cost sebab dia bawa masuk professor kan. My scientific chair also been funded by all these fellows also. But so that is the way to go around, because these are vested interests. We work and I'm coming from finance, vested interest. Why you do this is because of certain. Tapi moral values are very important for us. Hopefully, these are being reflected in our doings and in our universities. We should balik ke pangkal jalan dan tengok balik. Be honest to ourselves. You know, with globalization, actually, we are not winning. You know, in the initial 97-98 financial crisis, right? That crisis was because we accepted globalization. We thought, oh, globalization will bring out the best in us. Tapi masa first and dalam international trade under GATT, the first thing which they agreed was for capital to flow freely into the whole world. Then they say, kita developing country yang kaya labor, so labor pun kena free. Dia kata tunggu dulu, kita test dengan capital. What is there to test? So capital flooded, cheap forex, US dollar borrowing, so on and so forth. Then they attack your forex, and the whole years of development lost. You can blame the speculators, George Soros, and so on and so forth. But the thing here is the international organizational play. It's a play. And we were left with labor masih miskin. Like Turkey wanted, because in Europe, mostly Turkish, but they were not given free flow like capital flow. Then nobody talks about globalization from that sense anymore, because it doesn't work. So same thing in education. The thing was to rank, to do whatever they have to do, is business in nature. Okay, with that, I think I will stop now. Inshallah, we will continue later. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Walaupun I dah buat all the text, I think it's better to and then to read the text.
It's okay, Prof. But you have some sort of make some quite interesting points, which we wish to explore further, but we don't have the question and answer session just yet. We will hope for that question and answer sessions. Let's move to the next speaker, which is Professor Dr. Rosina Othman, who will be speaking on impact and quality of higher education. Prof, so your 15 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much. For giving me an opportunity to speak from many points of view, including my own specialization, bibliometrics. And it's very nice to hear the negative points given today about the use of bibliometrics from the commercial side. Okay, all right. Actually, it's all about subjectivity versus objectivity. But of course, when we are too objective,
then the stories and the qualitative sides are missing. Yeah. But anyway, I also would like to say welcome to Prof. Sharifah and also Prof. Zaharom, and also our Prof. Asma and Prof. Hasanuddin, and also Dr. Azani. Yeah. Okay. And thank you to Dr. Adli. All right, so I was given this topic and I said to Dr. Adli that let me compare with my notes and my responses and my students and, feedback about the ranking and the issues that I had each time when I was invited for a keynote speaker, to many universities in many countries, especially recently since 2019 in Indonesia, because they're going for ranking as well, okay? But with cautious and many considerations. So finally, we came up something like a compromise, okay, because it's a very difficult question to rank or not to rank. I think Hamlet himself had issues there, okay, and confusion in his mind and trying to express it in a manner that he can convince himself as well. Next, please. Okay, I think I remember the question from Dr. Zainuddin, right? Yeah. Okay. So why is it still attracting people, okay, to rely on GUR? Okay. So actually, the matters in question are these: the failing students' enrollment. Even though we might have like still millions of students, okay, going to universities, and then falling students' retention. There are cases where they came in for the first year and then they moved to another universities. And then falling students' completion rates. We thought we can handle it with GOT, but still completion rates is an issue. What do university students struggle with the most? So complaints such as, we are here to do PhD, but we are always reminded with filling in the forms, completing the forms for every matters, both online and manually. And when it comes to manually, forms are somewhere, okay, missing. And it's not a good one, okay, but that happened. Increased focus on applied learning and then increased focus on graduate employability. So most would say, after graduation, where shall we go? Okay. And then, but the most important point is that students would like to be well informed about their choices, about where to study. Okay. So I remember in 2020, when I went to Brunei to do promotion for our university, the first question is that URA is ranked at what number? Okay, because our sponsorship, our sponsors would ask that question. Okay, so that means if we give you scholarship, then you should go to at least the top 500. So I said that it depends on how you see it, because going into universities that are highly ranked with a scholarship, so actually there's a pressure to perform. So, so think back, your family background, okay, so and the duration that you need, and then we have our family relationship. Do we have time to spend with our family? And so our friends, so it's just like we walk from our hostel or mahala and then to the class and then without looking right and left. So I asked her to consider that because it was just a short conversation. So I just say it as, as brief as that. So the next one, if we look at the university rankings, this is what they offered. Okay, this is one of them, the QS. So it says there employability. Okay, because somehow we need to earn an income to live in this world. So nothing is free. So employability. And then the other one, the results, the analysis are from the expert opinions of over 240,000 academic faculty and employers. So when a potential student looked at this website, yeah, Prof. Hassan, and then they would say that, wow, this is, really helping us, helping the student. Okay, so let's look at the other graphics there, figure there. US World University Rankings methodology. using rankings to start your university search.
Betulkan I punya mic tak tersilap.
Okay, so QS is very helpful to the students because they are going to help the students to find a good university. And they use AI powered, okay, analytic to help students compare which university is the best and suit them, in terms of program and courses. And if we look at down there, the 3 students there, so one of them has already won the award for excellence, academic excellence scholarship in 2022. So it looks like a wow factor for the potential students. And then the middle one is the social responsibility. So this is what we are talking about, what's going on at our own university. And then we have that undergraduate scholarship. And then they have written stories on success and also advice to students out there how to go about choosing the university. And that's the success stories coming from others. And of course, they are enrolled into the university in the West or Global North. Next. Okay, so the other one, okay, the World University Rankings, okay, again, it talk about the university, the families, the academics, and then the university students, government, and industry. So it's like giving a holistic picture, a complete picture of the ranking, okay, in favor of the students. Okay, so that's in the green box there, okay. So now what are there for us? Okay, we use it for staff mobility, as mentioned by, I think, Prof. Zaharom, okay. Of course, and also Prof. Zaina about Myra. And then, but for us, it is staff mobility. So if you want to go for staff exchange or mobility, so we normally need to convince the management, the top management, we say that this is among the top 100 or 200, okay? And then the students' mobility, okay, it is a matter of berbaloi atau tidak. That's the questions that often posed to me. And then the MOU, MOA, the postdoctorate, the research leave, the sabbatical leave. By the way, my recent sabbatical leave is done here, was done here, because I believe my university has a very strong values and also support, okay, for me to complete my book. Collaborations, examiners, okay, reviewers, keynote speakers, editorial board, and our own academic network. Next. Okay, so let's look at another approach. Okay, because we often say that, what about the impact on the society or the community? So the THA, okay, has moved somehow, extended, maybe the business among the universities are now done, okay? So let's extend or further the horizon. So they move into the SDGs because many universities are adopting SDGs now. So the best way is to convince SDG itself. So here, United Nations. So here you can see there are 17, and then I just selected 9. So if we look at the ranking based on the SDG, USM got number 4. Okay, so really that's a major achievement, excellent. And we look at the first one, no poverty. So that's really address the ummatic problem, the problem of the ummah. And so now here comes the THE trying to put the universities align, they're trying to align the university with the SDG and have them rank. Okay, so that list, okay, for the SDG 1 has 876 universities from 88 countries. Okay, and then followed by zero hunger. Okay, so everywhere when there are war, and definitely and also as a result of economic issues, so there will be some nations having hunger. And then good health and well-being measures, okay, in terms of university research on key diseases, especially after the COVID-19. Next, please. All right, and then SDG 4, quality education, SDG 7, 6, clean water, okay, and then SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, SDG 8, decent work, and then SDG 9, the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So I just selected 9, okay, and I put that in the table. So how can we argue when THE really look into and give 27% for research on poverty? All right, and then research related to hunger. And then as you can see in the second row for no poverty, proportion of students receiving financial aid. All right, so it's kind of difficult to say no, okay, because it is there, okay, it is there. So if we cannot attract those students with scholarships, then we should be able to attract students, good students, but we need to prepare the financial aid. And then we have also the rest, okay, for example, like clean water and sanitation. How many of us have written or research on clean water and sanitation, whereas Islamically, that's among the first chapter in our fiqh book. So how can we justify that, you know, the THE is not really something of importance to us? So next. All right, so in our discussions, our final discussions, recent discussions in Makassar, hosted by UIN Makassar for 108 UIN in Indonesia. So we somehow concluded at this phase, okay, that we should go for accreditation. So move on that one. Okay, focus on that one first, okay, because this is only at the initial stage. We haven't able to answer the questions of to rank or not to rank yet. Okay, so we are going to strengthen on this one. Okay, because they have issue with unemployment, and then what is taught at the university is not aligned to the industry. Okay, the same issues we had before, and maybe we still have it now. So these are some samples that we considered. So still maintain the AACSB. But the one that's gaining popularity is the FIBA, okay? And of course, because we are ASEAN, so we are going for the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance. So that's the conclusion on paper, but of course, we need to go further on that one. And basically, from our experience, okay, at our faculty, whenever the students have graduated and even received award from our university, but when they went back to their country, the country asked for a letter to say that we are internationally accredited. So we had to bring, documents from MQA, and then shows that the MQA has incorporated the international accreditation. And now we are going to direction that we are going to include the international accreditation as well, because we just simply can't sustain ourselves in the ranking. Even if we manage to enter, okay, because every year it will keep changing, and one ranking company, shall I say, will give a different result than another. Next, please. All right. So, as I said earlier, my specialization is bibliometrics. But the way it has been used to rank, okay, even though in our field we have what we call the vector model. Everyone has used vector model actually in your search in Scopus. When you select, displaying the result by ranking, by rank, okay, either cited by highest or lowest, or relevance, okay. But then it has been somehow being used for commercial purposes, and then dominating the mind of people, okay, the mind of the academicians and potential students. However, it is really need to be, having a further discussion on how they measure, because some of the laws, okay, did not really allow, okay, that commercialization to happen, because most of the time, for example, like the Locust law, it's for us to really see, okay, how to come up with plan, okay, to have a high scientific productivity in certain areas that the nation needs the most. So that's the purpose, the real purpose actually, when it comes to Locust himself designing such a ranking, okay, of scientific productivity. So my second thoughts is that why do we have to submit data and evidences to that kind of world? Okay, because this is about us. Why should we be telling this agency everything about us, everything about our data? You know, how many papers beyond whatever is there in Scopus. So somehow, and then we let others judge us. Okay, so for me, it is something that I don't like. After all, I must say that I really do not want people to know much about me. And then evidences are there. So it is possible that evidences are submitted there, and then there will be one day that we do not have our own evidences from our point of view. So everything is already interpreted by them. And then they are supporting SDGs, or are they promoting universities? So if we follow the SDGs, or we align ourselves with the SDGs, then we turn out to be, we are promoting our universities. It's no longer really supporting the SDGs for the benefit of the Ummah. And then fluctuations in metrics, that's what I said earlier, when we judge it with the laws in bibliometrics, we found that it's somehow, because it is not really transparent, so it's like, you know, something not right somewhere. And then there are times in which they use the site score, and another time they did not. And in fact, Scopus somehow went beyond, did not really follow the impact factor formula. They created their own, okay? And then Scopus is definitely incomprehensive. And then another question that we have is that THE did not contribute to SDG. So how can they understand the SDG? For example, the 16.10.2. Yeah, so that was dropped from the impact ranking. Next, please. All right, so this is something that we ran yesterday for our university. Okay, just to roughly say, okay, so we have from 2021 to 2023, and then this is from Scopus, we have 1351, and then documents 3371 after validated, and there's a decline, minus 7.33. So shall we go for ranking or not? Looking at the minus 7.33 growth, okay, it's declining. Okay, we taken out the 2024 because it's not yet 1 year. So when we look at the most relevant sources, we saw that it's from engineering. So congratulations to College of Engineering. But at the same time, it's dominated by the science and technology, and those others coming from more or less sounds a bit of the social science. They come from other universities. So if you look at the topics there, up there, the figures, all the visualization concepts, the visualized concepts. So we have Malaysia there, and then we have all distributed. So we have machine learning, because now we are going towards AI, powered analytic, and also for decision making and analysis, big data analysis. And then we have also down there Malaysia having connection, okay, with authors from other countries. Next, please. Okay, to rank or not to rank, sorry, should be order. Yeah. To rank or not to rank, that is the question in respect with Asa. Okay, so I rank to be there at the right time. And then I think for now, we go for national rankings, because some students want to come to Malaysia. So when they come to study in Malaysia, they say which university. So each of us have a different niche, just like what Prof. Amirah was saying, we should go with our niche. So if they like to be at our university, then Islamization should be highlighted and make it visible to them, together with the SDGs, okay, community, okay, works, etc. As that's a translation from the class, okay, into the to the public. And then the not to rank. Okay, so forget about ranking. Let's go for educational tourism. Okay, and then of course networking and collaboration. So you can still make friends to those universities rank high. Okay, all right, and still network with them. But of course, I don't think we should really do or die. Okay, for the ranking. So if you ask me, I'll go to the green one, not to rank. So even though this is my specialization, bibliometrics, but it's not something that I should be proud of because it has been abused in a way. With that, thank you very much.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Prof. Really interesting point. But we have to go to Prof. Asma first before we open for the sessions of question and answer. So, Prof. Asma, you are now welcome to give talk or to give inputs on the topic academic staff KPI and well-being. So, Prof, please welcome.
I'm controlling the slide. Yeah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Very good afternoon to the distinguished panelists and to the MC, Tazani, and also to Dr. Adli for inviting me to share my thoughts on academic staff KPI and well-being. I know you don't like ranking, but I gotta show this. Where is Malaysia University in the ranking for 2024? And if you look at that, of course, the number one, all the top 5 are coming from the RUs, right? And I'm glad to see, well, at least USM now from number 5 is now number 2. So something must be done right. But if you just go down and you see International Islamic University, and it's at number 711 in the QS World Ranking, and QS Asia Ranking is at 136. So since I think we all can say that no single metric can actually say what is the contribution of a university. No single metric can say what is the impact the university has on its students, on its community, and its society. We do not believe in ranking, but ranking or being ranked is actually beyond our control, because AI and generative AI can basically assess the information on the net and actually formulate marks for IIUM, whether we like it or not. Because if you really look at this, you want to find a selling point, you can see that IIUM, even though you don't like being ranked, is top 8 IPTA in Malaysia. And this is the top Islamic university in Malaysia, because there's only 3 Islamic universities. USIM is at 1,200, if you want to consider. But UNIZA is not in the game, not at all. Basically, kalau nak jual lah, you have now IIUM as the top Islamic university in Malaysia. And this is where we do not actually give data. But I have been informed that RMC actually put up fantastic real data regarding IIUM, its publications and whatnot, which I think is available on the net. And that's how we've been ranked. And a lot of universities who really fight tooth and nail to be ranked, and IIUM nonchalantly is sitting at 711. You see what I'm trying to say? And this is when we don't care. Now, if we do care, maybe things will be different. Okay. And IIUM will rank high if Prof. Hassan punya OIC universities, that's another selling point. I mean, if you want to now look at it lah. But emerging and disruptive technologies are here to stay, and it's going to create a big impact to higher education. And I think we need to shift our mindset, to concentrate on ranking where is now the universities heading in the future, because the future is already today, and it's whether IIUM can catch up or not with what is happening today. Because December 8, PMX dah sign dengan NVIDIA to actually make Malaysia as the top 20 country for artificial intelligence. Basically, what he's saying is that by signing with NVIDIA, which is the US 6th largest company for market capitalism, is signing them to actually develop Malaysia punya AI ecosystem for Malaysia and make us the top 20 country in the world for artificial intelligence. Okay, tengoklah macam mana kan. Tapi dengan 4G, 5G pun tak menjadi lagi, but we want to be the top 20 in the world. But well, okay, we'll see. And basically, NVIDIA is coming in to build a center of excellence to facilitate AI learning and research, as well as creating Malaysia's own AI cloud computing system. And of course, now UTM is going to be the first university yang ada AI faculty, and diberi 20 juta for that. But the thing is, if you look at it closely, NVIDIA is now working with YTL to actually build an AI data center involving 20 billion investment. And this is where sekarang ni you got to be careful with the data that you have, right? So itu kena tengoklah. But change isn't coming, ladies and gentlemen, it's already here. And the thing is, we are facing the accelerating pace of change due to the digital age, the disruptive and emerging technologies is coming in, global economic crisis, human disease like pandemics, global competition due to globalization, and of course, planetary health. As we are concerned, COP28 has already shown we are already 2 degrees Celsius. Apa lagi kan? So erratic weather patterns are now coming in. But what's important is that we are now living in post-normal times. And this is a transformative force that is causing the world to be in a state of chaotic, full of uncertainties, and the only constant is change. And this has now a great impact on higher education. That's what I want to spell out today. This impact on higher education, and we're still worried about ranking because the things are changing at a very fast rate. As if we have not moved, we are still talking about ranking. You understand what I'm trying to say? So we need to now move on with life, ladies and gentlemen, and that because this emerging and disruptive technology will, and the post-normal times will create an impact to our livelihood and also to our lives. What kind of impact are we talking about? Tomorrow or today is already about digitalization. My question is, does IIUM have a digitalization plan? Okay, you are the dean. So, so do you have a digitalization plan? If we don't, then we are going to be behind times again. So multidisciplinary research is the way forward. Lifelong learning is the way forward. Globalization, policies on education and whatnot must be cross-cultural and global curriculum. Health and well-being, because we are now facing with Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta. They are very much into mental health. So we need to emphasize on that. And the future lecturers are also going to be Gen Z. So we also need to worry on that. Innovation and entrepreneurship is now encouraged. Quality assurance. We're talking about quality assurance. Also, MQA also need to change because quality assurance, as I will show you the impact on higher education, is going to evolve accreditation system. And we got to change the learning and assessment that we are now doing for the students. It cannot be the same way that we are doing now. And government policy funding has got to change. But whatever it is, we got to change from a structured to flexible to personalized education. And the value of the degree that we are so-called offering and asking people to come is actually now going down because alternative credentials are now coming in with digital badges, with certificates and industry recognized certificates. That's going to happen. And the world is now shifting higher education to make sure that we are contributing to planetary health and sustainability. And as we move into the era of unknown and uncertainty, ethical considerations need to be taking place. And what's important is that as we move into uncertainty, what is going to make us be there is values, values-driven education with DEI. That means diversity, equity, equality, and inclusion has got to be in. And that essentially is falsafah pendidikan negara, right? And we have been having all this, and yet we are still circling around the world looking for what's best, but we actually have what's best already in falsafah pendidikan negara. So what I'm trying to say here is that digitalization and digital literacy is going to be the strong driving force in the future. And therefore, it's very important that we concentrate on digitalization plan of the university, because the trend now is not just work from anywhere. Students now also is saying learn from anywhere. Okay, so therefore, post-normal times has now brought in new priorities. We are still studying what this ranking is doing, but essentially post-normal times is now saying, hello, Priorities are changing already. We are not looking at what we're supposed to be looking before. So basically, there is now a pressure for a more responsive, humanity-centric education system to help solve societal challenges, focusing on values, academic freedom, integrity, equality, equity, diversity, inclusion, improve student access, and undertake impactful research and innovation. In short, countries are now placing pressure on ranking, that asking ranking now to be a more meaningful exercise, if not just jump the ship. So in 2020, Chinese ministries are brave enough. Chinese ministries and education and Ministry of Science and Technology renounced their reliance on Science Citation Index for academic assessment, appointment, promotion. China is choosing its own path of academic evaluation. Beranikah Malaysia? Right? China wants to make fundamental changes in the way they evaluate their academic system and aims to establish new evaluation system that is more relevant and more responsive and more meaningful to Chinese academic context, Chinese punya problem, and Chinese punya values. All right. So in a similar move, Dutch universities also give up, tak mau, and withdraw from rankings. Right. So instead of asking for a publication list and CV bila you nak minta grant application, they ask now for a more narrative approach, like, why is this research important, and why is the applicant the right person to carry out this work? Nampak? So in November 2022, several law schools, Yale, Harvard, also renounced dia orang punya withdrawal from US News World Rankings because they think the methodology is flawed. So in short, ladies and gentlemen, we begin to see now countries, you know, when China move out, there's a lot of universities that move out from the ranking. Okay. So in short, what we see now is a trend moving towards more meaningful indicators that now cater for mission and vision of that country and the country's shared values, and asking the universities in that country to actually support the ideals and the shared values of the nation. So we are changing. So the current ranking like QS and Times Higher Education actually do not take into account the intangibles yang I mentioned tadi, yet these intangibles are meaningful to the development of the future generation of Malaysians facing unknown challenges. So unless ranking change, ranking is also going to be no longer relevant. So I think it's high time we discuss about how to redefine what excellence is. But while we are trying to do that, okay, still fighting on this ranking thing, but look at the future of universities. This is where I selalu kata IUM ni kena fikir that we are not the way we are today. This is now going to be the scenarios of higher education post-normal times, and it's not tomorrow, it's already today. And we look at the 4 quadrants. We are still in the traditional brick and mortar. And this traditional brick and mortar is very much curriculum driven. Lecturer determine what is going to be. You write the COPA. And bottom line sekarang ni is place bound, mesti dekat university, standardized, very MQA regulated, and no change. All right. But universities are now moving to quadrant 2, which is what we call the jukebox, and whereby tomorrow is about students sekarang ni have the power over the educators, because this is now working with Gen Z at the alpha, beta. They are all digital natives. They now are considered as the most intelligent because they have Professor Google and Professor Bart Google and all that. And Professor Asma cannot even answer some of the questions that they want. But bottom line is that all the professors in the room can answer. So, okay, so what I'm saying is that the students now select the courses. And the various universities, the courses are aligned to technology advancement, and it's going to be flexible. And certification is no longer with MQA. Certification is as long as USM consider to University of Long Kong and we are okay, we are okay. We can do. And you're already doing that because you have relationship dengan university in Africa, and elective mobility is already happening. So you're actually doing marginal change, whether you like it or not. But the third thing is that kalau selalu kita kena bashing to say apalah kita tak sediakan university ready talent lah, industry ready talent lah, apa benda, industry now can take over. They can now do what they want. Basically, industry-led certificate or adaptive or what we call Uberization is now coming in. And basically this is the forward schools. Yang sekarang ni dah ada di Pulau Pinang, dah ada di Selangor, forward school for EE, forward school for halal. So we have all that already. So basically it's customizable, it's non-traditional, and it's organized from the demand side. Maknanya industri sendiri yang conduct these courses. So the certification is awarded by the industry. As long as the industries have mutual recognition, then that's it. So the EE industry di Pulau Pinang and the EE industry in Selangor, the graduate, kalau dia orang terima, that's it. They probably now hire the thing. That's why I said the value of the degree now is also going down. If you now go for Web 3.0, this is total radical change whereby learn for self-satisfaction. Budak sendiri decide what budak wants to learn. Budak decide, budak here is not budak. Budak can be you and me who doesn't want the degree, but we want to have meningkatkan kewibawaan kita in certain areas. KL42 by Sunway University already going into Web 3.0. They are now teaching how to do coding and whatnot. Anyone in the world can actually access to this. And tak ada pun MQA is self-organized, no university, place, time, curriculum, totally unbound. So basically recognition or certification is no longer by an entity called an MQA, but by professional bodies. Antara dua professional body kata okay, antara dua communities kata okay, antara industry kata okay, everything is okay. Basically, nothing is stopping the universities from going to quadrant 2, 3, and 4. And this is my presentation. I baru habis presentation to ministry. So globalization, disruptive technologies, and global economic trends will continue to reshape the world of work. And higher education, therefore, has an increasingly important role to prepare the individuals for the jobs of the future that is not yet known using technologies not yet determined. So the trend is now moving from traditional to now total unbundling of higher education with multiple entries and multiple exits. So with the unbundling of higher education, please notice that universities are no longer the only education or knowledge provider. You notice that? Anyone can give now. The industry can give. You now go to marginal. Any education provider, private ke apa, boleh bagi, tak perlu university, because there's no need for any accreditation nor certification. You faham tak? So bottom line, I hope IIUM nampak that we are actually facing a hell lot of competition in the future, and whether we are prepared or not, or are we being complacent and actually now living and thinking that living in this traditional brick and mortar will protect us forever. Alright, so bottom line sekarang ni, I don't know why to rank or not to rank is the discussion, because to me, as I look at it, ranking is irrelevant. Right? As we go through all this unbundling of higher education, ranking is actually irrelevant. So what is the implication for what I have just said? Right? As higher education unbundles, the balance of power now is shifting from the education or the learning provider, which is the universities, to actually now the students. So you kena realize kita ni millennial lah, baby boomer lah, generation X lah, our thinking is different because budak is now Gen Z, Alpha and Beta, and they are digital natives. So we have to understand budak sekarang will decide what budak wants for budak's life. Alright, I hope kita boleh nampak this change, because if we are still thinking from our perspective, kita kata no, mereka kena dengar cakap kita sebab kita ada PhD. Alright, so this is where things have got to change, right? So it's going to be student or learner centered, and the students decide what they want. So what is our job? What then becomes our job? Not only kita university, kita kena compete juga dengan other education providers. So our job now is to figure out what exactly is the differentiating factor that will now ask the students to come to us. Why not go to any other universities? Why come to IIUM? That should now be something that you should be discussing today, right? And instead of budak now go and study elsewhere. Universities now have to think, what make you unique? If you are just offering courses macam kita duk offer sekarang duk masuk standard, if we are now doing the courses online, you're just one of the many. You're just one of the many. You buat mathematics, orang lain pun buat matematik. You buat business, orang lain pun buat business. You buat ekonomi dan muamalat, orang lain pun buat ekonomi dan muamalat. And you do online. So what? other people, other universities are also doing anywhere around the world. All right. So basically, why the next question you gotta ask is that once unbundling dah berlaku, kenapa kita tak boleh dapat kita punya degree daripada edX ataupun daripada Coursera, where Harvard and Oxford are teaching for free, and my dekat IUM kena bayar lagi, right? So bottom line, free versus the best, and then coming to what then? Why should I pay to come to IUM? That is something that you need to think about. So we need to be the best that is offering something really good and distinctive in order for budak to select IUM. Okay. Right. So what on attraction is one attraction is actually showing caring concept. As we go now to digitalization mode, caring becomes very important. Jobs of tomorrow is not becoming doctors but become nurses. The best, most employed tomorrow will be nurses because they are the only one that cares. They are the only one that touch, because most of the time is going to be digital. All right. And the future physiotherapists, right? Not engineers, not doctors. And here we are still producing engineers and doctors. Tapi what kind of engineers and doctors should we be producing? That is something we need to discuss. So basically, student well-being now is going to be key. And if you are a university that cares about the student, that shows emphasis on student well-being, staff well-being, you will be selected. Nampak? By word of mouth, they will be saying this, or come to IUM because they have what it takes. So academic role as career advisor, as mentor will now be increasingly important to advise students with the new job trends. So the question then is, how do we know what is our differentiating factor? I think Prof Hassan tanya, the same tanya. So but kalau kita still based on what kita tahu with the ranking as what you are trying to deep dive, I don't think we can get out of the rut. So bottom line sekarang ni, we need to change. This is my suggestion. Okay, you can take it or leave it lah. But bottom line kita kata, why not we look at Blue Ocean strategy? Blue Ocean strategy is about subject ranking. Remember, subject ranking you tak boleh full. We are not talking about university ranking yang ada kriteria macam-macam, but subject is something you publish and is there. And bottom line sekarang, if you look at Blue Ocean, and if you look at low impact and high impact versus low influence and high influence, right? If you are here, low influence, low impact, siapa pun tak mau. So kita pun tak mau duduk kat situ publishing in low influence, low impact. But a lot of people wants to go to low influence, high impact because dia rasa bahawa satu hari semua orang desire to be high influence, high impact, right? But people forget about this Blue Ocean. The Blue Ocean is actually high influence, low impact today. But if IIUM continue to publish dalam bidang ini, IIUM will move to this. Nampak? That's what we are teaching the RUs. The RUs now cari you punya significant differentiating factor that you are now creating high influence now. But low impact sekarang sebab kita belum publish the numbers. But once we start to publish the numbers, we will now move up to become here. And basically, but the problem is kita follow QS ranking, medicine, engineering, pharmacy, right? If you use that kind of title sampai bila pun, insyaAllah we will never succeed. Look at our labs lah. Let's talk sense. Look at our labs. Look at the amount of money we get per year. Look at our research grant. The entire 400 million yang dia bagi pada government, you cannot even turn around because when you convert to USD, we fail already. This is the whole country punya grant. Jangan fikir pasal, ada cakap Kedah lah. Jangan fikir pasal IIUM punya grant. Okay. So the thing you need to ask strategically is what then are the subjects that IIUM is good at? This is where you need RMC to actually deep dive and actually say to you, is it Islamic banking and finance? Is it human science? Is it Islamic studies? What kind of fiqh, usuluddin, frozen zoo, gender dysphoria, all right? Tropical medicine. Jangan kata medicine. If you say tropical medicine, we stand a chance, right? Is it going to be community engagement? Is it going to be halal? Or tropical pharmaceutics? Jangan kata pharmacy. Tropical pharmaceutics. Waalaikumsalam.
Why am I here?
Because you have to listen to me. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Right. Okay. So if we choose these topics, Islamic architecture, sustainability, if we start to choose, okay, for my suggestion is choose 5 or 7 topics and actually ask Elsevier to deep dive, because they are the only one that have the receptacle of all the publications in the world. And when they deep dive, they will find subject that actually IIUM will shine in. Okay. And that's where we now find that's our selling point, and that's what we're good at. When I was DG before, I called in Elsevier to actually deep dive 5 areas. I said bagi Islamic banking and finance, because I dah rasa dah there's no way medicine, pharmacy we will lose out. Bagi Islamic banking and finance, bagi ke I tropical medicine, tropical agriculture, bagi ke I palm oil, all right, and sure enough, I can't remember what's the 5th one. And sure enough, when Elsevier deep dive in these subject ranking areas, IIUM is number 1 in the world for Islamic banking and finance. Number 1 in the world. Number 2 is INSEAD. Number 3 is all the RUs. Nampak tak? So maknanya you have a selling point to say you are the best in the world for Islamic banking and finance. But sekarang ni we need to find, is it frozen zoo? Is it tropical medicine? Is it Islamic medicine? I don't know. But you have to deep dive. You have to know what. So RMC lah kot boleh guide you on this. Because what I'm trying to say here, ladies and gentlemen, go to battle using their own weapons. Right? You nak cari another indicator, bila nak buat? Bila orang nak terima? But the thing is, Elsevier sendiri kata you rank number whatever. Then guna Elsevier with their own weapons and find for us this area. All right? And we now will say to the world, we are the number 1 in the world based on Elsevier. Nampak? So this is one way is that Elsevier sendiri provide the testimony to say that we are the best in the world. And that's how I found out that how beautiful is IIUM at that time. Among the 5 RUs, IIUM is number 6. And because of that strength that you had before. Okay. By doing this subject ranking lah, jangan go on university ranking. So that's one way. Basically, now the question that Adli asked me to do. How now, which is very difficult, how now do you ensure performance driven via KPI, yet maintaining staff well-being? Okay, a great time for Tan Sri to be here because ini dia kena dengar. So basically, balancing performance driven expectations with staff well-being is going to be crucial if you want to create a productive work environment. I nak tarik perkataan productive work environment, right? For productive work environment, we need to understand what is our amanah. Baru you boleh kata I'm productive or not productive. What is our amanah? Our amanah, ladies and gentlemen, is we need to generate knowledge, we need to disseminate knowledge, we need to translate knowledge to create impact to society or to the industry. Our amanah does not stop at creating academic impact. This high, bila mati pun Tuhan tak tanya what's your age index and what's your citation index. Dia tanya apakah ilmu yang kamu hasilkan yang memanfaatkan manusia. Dia tak tanya apakah ilmu yang kamu hasilkan, tambah ada ilmu tu memanfaatkan manusia atau tidak. So basically, we need also amanah index. Not only we know about amanah, we also need an amanah index to measure the responsibilities that we are supposed to deliver. But if you want to maintain staff well-being, it's very important, clear communication and expectation. As a university, we receive money from the rakyat, because that's what Parliament gives. If we do not want ranking, then how do we now show our performance or impact based on the money that we receive from the rakyat? But it must also be something that the rakyat can now universally accept as acceptable to the public. So if we do not want KPI, then the promotion exercise also need to change, because the promotion on one hand kita kata impact, community engagement, tapi kenaikan pangkat tidak mengambil kira high marks on this aspect. So I've already informed KPT also for the future blueprint, they also need to change. And we must clearly communicate expectation and performance goals to the academic. Make sure that they understand their role, their responsibilities, and how their contribution now is going to be aligned with organizational objective. Whatever it is, bottom line, we need to be clear on the expectation, since it's going to impact on academic integrity. Why do I say academic integrity? Because we concentrate so much, because we look at the publication, apa for kenaikan pangkat, kita tengok research and publication, and therefore when we start to do that, we start to spend less time with the student. When we start to spend less time with the student, we find that those who are slow, dalam kelas yang 100, 200, those yang slow and cannot catch up, kita pun tak ada masa nak tanya kat dia how you doing, whatever. Kita tak ada masa sebab kita pun kena ada kat lab, kita pun nak kena publish papers, right? So basically, you will now, whether you like it or not, actually encourage the student to buat dia punya homework menggunakan chat GPT. Because dia dah tak faham. So bila dia tak faham, it's easier to use chat to just buat the homework for you, and that is dumbing thinking that is going to happen. So essentially kita actually contribute to student punya plagiarism, to student punya ni, because academic integrity kita tidak uphold. Alright. So next one, kita kena buat flexible work arrangement. I have done my talk on generation gap, and IUM punya profile is the academics are equal in terms of millennial and generation X. Maknanya this generation menghargai value work-life balance. And therefore, if that is the case, semua orang kena main universiti, semua orang kena duduk, this is not going to be on lah. So basically, if we do that, then we need to think about offering flexible work arrangement. Sekarang ni Axiata and most of the companies pun either full work from home ataupun 3 days a week, and then 2 days or 1 day kita bagi untuk work from home. So these are some of the things that probably need to consider as staff well-being. The next one is workload management. I find that different PTJ ada different workload depending on ni. So basically we need to monitor workloads to ensure that they are reasonable and manageable and show diversity and inclusiveness. Kadang-kadang orang yang nampak very good, kita continue to bagi kerja kat dia. Orang yang selalu complain seumurnya, kita pun malah basa dengan dia, kita bagi kurang kerja kat dia. So it's not fair. So basically and then ada setengah macam ambil minutes wanita sahaja. And then lelaki sakit tulang, tidak boleh menulis minit. So that kind of stuff, I think you need to see diversity, you need to see inclusiveness. So basically you can assign jobs so that gender balance is there. So we need to actually also encourage a nice workplace in order to prevent a burnout. The other one is consensus decision making, involves academics in actually kita prefer concept. Kita semua ni dah dalam digital age. Anything you want in terms of information, you're going to get. But the thing is, involve the academics in decision-making process. Maknanya, get consensus decision, you get the buy-in, and when you get the buy-in, you have sustainability of all the strategic plans that you want to do. So by integrating all these strategies, organization can move KPI, but it's mindful, especially of well-being of the staff. So it's important to recognize that a healthy, motivated, engaged workforce is more likely to contribute positively to organizational success over a long time. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for mindset change. Instead of saying KPI as key performance indicator, why not we say keep people inspired? Because if KPI means keep people inspired, then people will walk the mile for you. If they are continue inspired, then all the strategic plans that we want to do will happen because they are inspired, they are interested, and we want them to be impactful. So basically, that's my suggestion to actually turn around the word KPI to do that. So we thank you very much for your time. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Prof. I don't even want to stop you, but but we have gone beyond time. But welcome, Tan Sri, to the sessions. We are concluding the second round of the discussion. But before that, the question is to rank or not to rank. But after listening to each one of you, it becomes more difficult to answer. Even though the question is like a close-ended question, you just have to choose one, rank or not to rank. But if I can like specify for each one of them, Prof. Hasanuddin will say that this is not our call. Prof. Rosina will say that maybe we don't have to go for ranking. And Prof. Asma said, don't care about it, we'll just go do our own business. Yeah, it's irrelevant. I would like to open the floor for question and answer sessions, but probably we just have 1 or 2 questions, probably, but I've been booked for 1 question, which is Dr. Zainuddin has texted me personally asking I want to ask questions. So please go ahead, Dr. Zainuddin.
Jangan marah. Okay, Adik, you got time. Okay, when talking about this, in testing, measurement, and assessment, we are always reminded of a concept called washback. Washback, in a sense, means that test whether format, focus, or the impact of the test will somehow influence the curriculum and the teaching learning process. It's happening. It's every day in our class. Katalah kita mengajar khusus otomotif. The class is very practical in nature. Okay, so that is a snippet at a very small scale. At a slightly bigger scale, oh, by the way, washback can be positive and negative as well. At a slightly bigger scale, at the national level, look, we are subjecting ourselves to MQA, and to those who are from my neighbor, Kuliah of Engineering, they're subjecting themselves to EAC. So whatever the rubrics in the assessment determined by MQA and EAC will be taken into consideration, and they will tailor-make their teaching and delivery according to the rubrics. Okay. Now at a bigger scale, kalau macro lah kita boleh panggil, if we subject ourselves to ranking, the same will happen. If they set a rubric for us to follow, and if we decide to follow the ranking, we will always be subject by their ranking. So you will put yourself in a big balloon, you boleh buat mental and physical gymnastics in there, but you still follow the rubrics. So for that reason, if you follow a ranking, if the components of the rubrics in the ranking is not agreed by you, but you still follow that ranking by default, by political will, by financial will, whatever that is, three things might happen to you. Number one, you are sacrificing your own ideals. For example, in IUM, apa jadi dengan kita punya falsafah, apa jadi dengan kita punya vision and mission kalau kita blindly follow a ranking. Number two, we are subjecting ourselves to other ways of running the university, because that's how we are going to be evaluated. If you do something else, your achievement will not be captured. Your marks will be low. People will not come to you. And the last one, ranking dekat luar ni, how about the good points that we do, but not there in their rubrics? That's my concern. So, slightly different from what Pro Asma said just now. I think ranking okay, so long we all can agree with the components of the rubrics. Otherwise, let's not go there. I go Pro Asma way. We design our own, because we respect our own uniqueness. But at the same time, kita hendak bersama-sama, ini yang pelik sikit kat Malaysia ni, meraihkan perbezaan, tetapi kita mau bersama-sama. That's from testing, measurement and assessment. So we need to be very careful about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Khalid Nordin, where is the stand on MOHE on this? Because I'm doing the STI paper to change the landscape for the country, but kalau masih on ranking, then susah lah kan. So basically, flatly, Ministry of Higher Education tidak menggalakkan ranking. And notice that the publication in the newspapers are by newspapers. Yang pasal ranking UM lah, is not a statement from the kementerian. So I think dia dah declare, tapi I tak tahu lah new minister macam mana. But the current KPT punya ni is tidak mengikut ranking. So that's it lah.
Thank you, Prasma, for the response. Yes, and maybe perhaps one last question. Okay.
It was interesting as you started to talk about university as if it's a selling thing, selling courses, and students just simply choosing whatever they want. Now, how do you make a total student rather than just, instead of the courses becoming more and more technical? I know the IT jobs are very popular these days, but they don't learn any human science, or they don't learn any philosophy. So can they actually develop to be productive? You must remember the most popular course in Harvard actually is philosophy course called Justice by Michael Sandel. It has thousands of students. It has nothing to do with AI, nothing to do with technicalities, but it's how to create a whole human being rather than just simply becoming a vocational school.
Okay. Who would like to respond to these questions? Maybe we give each one equal opportunity. Maybe starting with Prof. Rosina first.
Okay, with regards to the AI, because you're talking about the IT people, so actually we are moving towards being humanistic. Okay, the AI as a subject or as a specialty or expertise, and also innovators. We are incorporating Islamization, okay, and also under the category of digital humanity. And in fact, because of the future, just like what Prof. Asma mentioned in the post-normal times, there will be high dependence on AI. So the focus now is going for the AI-powered analytic, where we need to put in the human aspect, but we don't call humanity, or because that will somehow to us in our discipline that will really narrow it. So we go for the humanistic because we want to run away from secularism, etc. So, for example, like when it comes to AI power analytic, it is more of insights. So we want insights beyond the artificial. Okay, so it has to be not just imitation of human, because many are going for retirement. So there'll be kind of a group who the globally will be retiring, and they'll be out of picture from the intellectual world, okay, or map. And this AI will not come to imitate or even to replace us, but bringing in some, maintaining some humanistic values, so that when we make decision, because AI knows a lot when it comes to big data, they have seen the data, we didn't see it, okay? So therefore we want to have insights, and then we promote the collaborative leadership or collaborative knowledge discovery, because we, just like ranking, we do not want to be ranked because of someone doing AI power analytic to say that we are good or we're not good. So similarly for that artificial intelligence that coming soon into academic, beginning with ChatGPT. Actually, to mention, ChatGPT requires training, so we need to train. So our team, we train ChatGPT to learn about Pantun. So, and it's doing okay so far, acceptable. Thank you very much.
Maybe Professor want to add something?
Basically, the model that we are bringing into the next higher education blueprint is a humanity-centric model that takes care about the not just human focus, tetapi how human interact also with the living things, the planet, the ecosystem, the whole ecosystem. So supaya sekarang ni sustainability is the end game that we want to have ni. So this is very important because we are moving into emerging and disruptive technology. AI is only one, generative, but we have biotech, blockchain, the whole works of the future that's going to be disruptive as well. So bottom line, kalau not being guided by a humanity-centric model, which I think at the end of the day, that's what IUM has. I mean, we've gone circles saying essentially what IUM dah, or the Quran dah katakan, that dalam untuk manusia kita kena jaga environment kita, because we are the guardian for the future generation, the planet Earth, and that's what we should be doing. And so we are not just about human, but jaga hanya what human want, but also kena jaga what human want in relation to the living things and the ecosystem of the planet. So and to me, end game sustainability and rahmatan lil alamin. So why are we going in circle? Because we already have what it takes. But the question is, Mak Saleh ni, they go everywhere, baru nak come back to sustainability. Kita ni baru follow dia orang. But at the end of the day, you already have what it is. So I think IUM stands a very good chance of why people need to come, because people need to relearn, unlearn, relearn, balik tentang what it's all about, what the Quran is now saying. So it's how now we make it visible. How we want to make it visible about the things that we do. Yang tu saya rasa is important lah. Ni. And you're right. I mean, people want to learn about what people want to learn. It's not about the technology or whatever.
We
it's
have
about
to make them learn other things too.
Betul. That's
Even
why
if they don't want to learn it.
That's why we need to bring them to IUM first. and then we tell them about the other things.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe Prof Hassan, do you want to add something to that?
Okay, thank you. As long as we are not in the driver's seat, we will be dictated by others. This is what has happened. IUM noble goals from the beginning has been the right thing with very well balanced. The humanistic one is where the priority was, and we turn out a lot of good valued individuals, not only for the Malaysian context, but also internationally. As long as the like Harvard or whatever, subject content experts will have to be there. You have to teach that. But that values, that norms, these interferences, in Malaysia, everything has been politicized. Hari ini orang nak cakap pasal sejarah, dia akan menuntut semua orang dia ajar sejarah. So these are things which shouldn't be entertained, but who is holding the money? So the money man will talk. But we have to come back as academicians to see what is our value base, what it should be. Expertise has to be given, but we want to turn out doctors to have values. And as what I've mentioned, Quran ada, semua ada. Memang kita pun kaji begitu. Tapi on our way as we go on, interferences has made prioritize things which we shouldn't just blindly as adopted. So that is how it goes. And then for Asa, the question to rank or not to rank, I think we have to go beyond it lah. As I mentioned, we have got no our contention as is it is not to rank or not to rank. As long as you are good in what you are doing, you will be known. Not necessarily Islamic banking ke, Islamic banking and finance. Ada banyak masalah juga. Tapi if that is good, that will turn around, okay, fine. Tetapi macam SDG, from the time you were born as Muslim, why should we have to, SDG started only a few years back. And everybody jumped into it. But Alhamdulillah, better late than never. But we always forget who we are. That's why I think Asa has got to play a very important role to come up with all these ideas of the future. As Prof Asma has presented, it's very true. It's no more these things which we are doing today. Out there is all different. And also values, adab, is very much contested. And then that is very scary. So I hope we can take off in a manner that it will be holistic, balanced, and to be, as I mentioned in my presentation, everybody has got this vested interest. This vested interest destroy our very noble goals and values. So we need to be steadfast in what we want, and inshallah, Allah will bless us. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I believe because that sounds like a concluding remark from you. That's your concluding remark, okay? So that's your concluding remark, right? Okay. Because we will have another round of concluding remarks. But since you have given your concluding remarks, so it's like a time for us to come to the conclusions of the discussions. So now we are left with maybe Professor want to go first or Prof Rosina want to go first for the. Okay, dah tak nak jawab dah, dah. Okay. Ada apa-apa last word from you, both of you? No.
Yeah, I will go for our niche because otherwise then just known commonly. So yeah, as I said just now, I will go for our niche. Whatever measures, whatever ranking, we go by our niche. And people say join ranking. If we have to, we have to join. It's like do or die, but it's always have been our path is very clear. We go by our specialization. And of course, our Rahmatul Alamin. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we have come to the conclusions of our discussions, the second discussions. So again, I would like to thank Prof Zaharom Nain, Prof Dato' Asma, and Prof Datin Rosina for providing such a very important and pointing out very critical issues in these particular discussions. So with that, I also thank all the participants, listeners joining us online as well. Especially for those who have asked the questions. So I pass back the floor to Dr. Azli for the next agenda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azani, for moderating the second panel discussion. Luckily, there were no chairs being thrown around. Alhamdulillah. And I think perhaps we are on the same page, although we might have some divergent views on how to approach the subject at hand. And I think this is what academia is all about, yeah, having diverse views. But I think we're on the same page when it comes to the issue of ranking or whether to rank or not to rank. Alhamdulillah, we have with us Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato' Zulkifli Sanusi, who I mentioned in the beginning was the one who mooted the idea that ASA host this roundtable discussion. So that's why he is obliged to deliver the concluding remarks. So Tan Sri, you have only 10 minutes because after this, all of us are invited to ASA space, our new space, to promote staff well-being. So we'll be having lunch there, inshallah. So inshallah, in 10 minutes, perhaps Tan Sri, you can give your thoughts.
Thank you, Adli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greeting of peace and a very good morning. Nice to meet old faces, Munirah, and other colleagues. I don't know how to conclude this, but I want to take a position not to speak as a rector, because that has some constraint in me. But I just want to take like an academic who has been in the business maybe almost more than 40 years now. The question of ranking when I joined in the university in the early 80s wasn't even a word. We don't really care whether we are ranked or not. Then USM then was University Pulau Pinang, University of Penang, second to University of Malaya. At least I was told that the university has got its own mission, and we decide for what we want to do. You know, then there was no AUKU. I was a student then, and we were taught on how to run our own life in our own way. No permission from these people, no permission from that people. We do what we need to do, what we think is right. So that is a mindset that I took, and until now I still believe in that mindset. But certainly now the constraints are much more rigid than what it was before. So I wanted to come back to this whole idea of what the university is all about. I think that is the main question that we need to ask. And I want to begin by looking at what's happening around us. I think the last news that I read was about these 3 universities, the 3 presidents who happen to be female, Harvard, MIT, and Pennsylvania. Yeah. That alone, I think somehow or other, the Pennsylvania University president has resigned. The Harvard has apologized. And now the corporation says, okay, we will back you up because you have apologized. I don't know what happened to the MIT one. I mean, these are quote unquote, we were told these are world-class universities. But yet they're still subjected to this very slavish way of running a university for one reason or the other. And it to me, does not measure up to what a university should be. So I have a very different idea of what university ought to be in our own context. I think most of you have spoken about this. When I was in USM, Zaharom was with me then, Asma was, and we were grappling and to find out what the university is all about. And then we stumbled into this Apex University, and the Apex University redefined what USM is all about, whereby talking about the bottom billions, mean the people who are not accessible to education. How do you bring education to them? Because at the end of the day, education is about leveling societies together, making it more just, fair, and also equitable. And then looking at the future, what we talk about transforming education for sustainable tomorrow, as it were. So the whole makeup of university is very different from whether you want to be number 1, number 2, number 3. Those things I think we've been fighting it off, and I think we were not into ranking at all, at least for that moment in time, because whatever we want to do, for example, talk about sustainability, then in 2005, the word sustainability wasn't even there in higher education. And I remember talking to a minister at that particular point. I say, Dato', can we talk about sustainable development, education for sustainable development? I still remember the jawapan, there's no political mileage in this. And therefore, he's not taking it on. You know, so how people judge university is very much into what they think what the university is all about. And I think it's our duty to redefine our university. And when I hear Asma spoke, I'm sure most of you speak the same language. I'm sure very familiar with what Zaharom and Munirah is talking about. How do we define the university? And let's stick to it. Nobody knows about IIUM better than we in IIUM. Not even the minister. I'm not too sure about the prime minister, but not even the minister. In the way, I mean, for Khalid Noordin, maybe the new one, who is an alumni, knows a little bit more. So who are they to tell us what to do if they don't even know what our business is all about? But we have not stick to our gun. Yeah, for example, when we were asked to do Education 4.0, the question that we asked the minister then, where is Education 3.0? Before we can jump into 4.0, where is Education 2.0? So in other words, these cliches are taken in and thrown to us, but the difficulty is that we accept them as though it is part and parcel of our ethos of what university, and therefore we change all the time. We keep on changing, and we never stick to one. This university, alhamdulillah, has got its own vision. I think the vision is more daunting than what I know. It talks about the betterment of human life and civilization. Yeah. So when the Prime Minister talked about Madani, we have been talking about it 40 years ago. What is so new about this Madani? At least he's Madani, and our Madani may not be the same also. When we talk about the Madani in the context of scripts and the 5 or 6 letters that needs to be translated into what civilization is all about. So I think in this university, we have defined what education is all about. But the question is like what Hassan said, how do we show and how do we deliver this? So when they talk about Rahmatan lil Alamin, are we really Rahmatan lil Alamin when we find hardly 10% of the population are non-Muslims? I mean, less than 1%. So that's not Rahmatan lil Alamin. Are we Rahmatan lil Alamin when the environment of the university is not even taken care in terms of sustainable development, the trees, the animals and stuff, that we are not Rahmatan lil Alamin. So these are the contradictions that I think we need to put in together. And alhamdulillah, in the last 4 or 5 years, we are beginning to narrow this. And just to make my remark short, we come up with this whole idea of community. Yeah. And the reason is very simple. My first week here, I was asked a question by one of the Jemaah at the masjid. Dia kata 35 tahun universiti ni di sini kami dapat apa? And it's difficult to answer that question. I'm lucky I say I've been here only for the last 1 week. I will not be able to answer your question. But as you look around, memang the community is still what it was 40 years ago when the university has moved on. So the pandemic tells us at the end of the day, when the industry closes down, when all your partners, desert you as it were, because of COVID, who builds you out? It's a community. So that's why we make a total reorientation by calling this a community university. I don't know whether Zainal has spoken to you about it, that every one of our students now work with the community with a skill of community profiling, community engagement, community analysis, and problem-solving community. And alhamdulillah, last year we have got about 250 projects that the students presented to us of how they deal with university, and some of them are able to solve the community problem. And they come back to us and say, we now feel relevant because we have understood what the community is all about, at least from the point of view of their involvement and empathizing with the university. They don't read books on poverty in the library, air-conditioned room, and know the 5 reasons of why people who are poor, when they go down on the ground, they find all these reasons are not valid anyway because the book is written by somebody else. So we're beginning to re-look at what university is all about and how we actually fill in the content, and the students are themselves knowledge producers rather than just knowledge recipients like we used to be. So I think these are the bigger question, and therefore the question of ranking does not even come up in any measures. And I am not happy with the ranking because it is a distraction for us. The minister keep on saying, why are you not in these numbers? Why are you not in these numbers? And I think that's a distraction that we want to get rid of, because at the end of the day, if we follow the ranking, then we all lose whatever we want to do. For example, di sini sajalah, if we take the QS ranking, Rahmatan lil Alamin has no place. This whole idea of working with the community has no place. So we need only to go in their definition of what internationalization is all about. And their internationalization to me is more about colonialism. Follow what they say and we just what journals, corpus or whatever, they reinvent things, and we just fit into the game, and we become colonized again, in indirectly or otherwise. So I think these are major questions, and I'm happy that why I pushed this Adli to talk about it, because of the UNU statement. I think people listen to. We have been talking about this for the last 20 years. Nobody listens. But when UNU punya two statements comes out and say that over long term, ranking will be a negative impact to the university, then everybody now stood up and listened, and exactly the way we want it to be. So immediately after that, so what is an alternative? You don't want ranking, so what? What is an alternative? So we are trying to fit into the alternative so other people can think about it. And Alhamdulillah, we presented this to the global conference of UNU University, and they seems to like it. And inshallah, next week we will go to Tokyo to talk to them about what it is all about and see whether they can adopt it as an alternative to ranking. People who want to do ranking, it's okay, it's part of your democratic rights. You want to go and rank, fine. But what is the alternative if you don't want to rank? And we are trying to make it good. There is another developmental model, we call it, very holistic, like Hisham was saying, we're just not measuring what we can measure. Some things that we can't measure, we also want to put it in place, maybe in a narrative form or whatever it is. We're still thinking about it, but not just things that you want to measure in the context of skills or whatever it is. And I also make the point that when I was a student, one of the skills, the soft skills that I must have is to deal with the dogs. In Penang, when you're going to go to kampongs, particularly kampong orang Cina, the first thing they do is to let out the dogs so that you don't come close to them, And your skill is to make the dog calm, and so that you can approach the house and talk to the kampong people. Now, I think how to tame a dog is a skill that nobody knows now. We talk about making 15 minutes presentation. I can master that in maybe 2 hours. But talk about how to tame a dog, it takes 3 days or 4 days, if you are lucky. So the dogs are not now. Now there are many things that's coming out that we don't have the skills at all, because our skills are very classroom based and we are not streetwise at all. So I think we need to move beyond just what we've got. And I hope this meeting today give us the confidence that we are now together in trying to redefine what the university is all about. Given the new minister coming in, I think the first thing that we want to do is to get his understanding of what the university is all about, and then move from then on. As far as this university is concerned, as long as I'm still here, we want to push this common university punya idea forward. It looks like there is a number of tractions. People have been talking to us how to make this happen as far as the change moving forward is concerned. Hopefully, it will be an alternative, may not be the last one. I know of 3 other or 4 others people doing it. I think OECD has got their own model. What do you call? QS also now trying to adjust into another model because they want to stay relevant in their quote-unquote business. Times is also doing that. So it's about the competition of who write the rules first. Right, betul. Sama macam Syam kata je. If you are the one who writes the rules, probably you can change the game. If you are not writing the rules, then you probably be following somebody else's rule, like we've been doing for the last so many years. So writing the rules, I think, is something that all of us are, challenged with. And what sort of rules that is more holistic, more developmental, and more futuristic in a way. So thank you so much for your indulgence and your time and effort, and I hope this will be Asa punya call. We will certainly support you to move forward. But if we don't make the change now, I think it's difficult to find another opportunity of this nature. We need to call another pandemic, which I think we don't want. Maybe another war in somewhere else. I don't think we also want that. Yeah? But this is an opportunity. I think it's a blessing in disguise that we need to make full use of, because it will be a turning point for us, inshallah. Yeah, so thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much, Tan Sri, for the concluding remarks. I will not say much since we have run out of time and over time, actually. So I invite everyone here to join us for lunch at Asa Space. It's basically above Evoke. We'll be leading the way, inshallah. It's on level 3, so we have to go down 2 floors, and then we'll be walking for about 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll be having lunch there, inshallah. So all of you are invited. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for those who attended, and thank you very much to the panelists who have agreed to be on the panel today.
What's after this?
We are going to write a report on this, and we'll send it to you and the ministry perhaps, because Wakil Minister was supposed to come. Wakil KPT was supposed to come from Bahagian Kecemalangan Academic, but then he had he has another workshop that he had to attend, so he apologized. He could not be here.
I just want to make one announcement. Brodin, check me if I'm wrong. We like 10 January sampai berapa? 2 days, right? We're going to have this fourth symposium.
10-18.
Can you describe a little bit what's happening on that 10 and 14? For those people who want to maybe participate.
Is it about symposium?
Yeah.
All right. Basically, it's a nation symposium showcasing our students' community engagement works under this subject. Basically, we are going to start with Gombak on 10th, and then followed by 18 in Pagoh campus, and we'll close with Kuantan on 20th. So apart from the student punya presentation on their first semester, the profiling, and also the project completion for the Usra in Action 2, we also have our communities, our partners, our industry, and our NGOs coming in to join the showcase during the symposium, which will be held in ICC on 10th of January. All right.
Thank you. So you are invited if you are interested to see exactly the dynamics of what we are doing for the last 3 or 4 years. I think this is kind of a culmination for the end of the year. Thanks.
Yeah, anyone from KPT coming? Tansi? Well, Asma tanya. For the symposium.
The minister is invited. During our symposium, we always have representative from academic industry as a judge. We also have them coming in to evaluate our students' project. So they are in, and this time around we are also inviting them to also showcase and exhibit what they have at their respective agencies.
International judges from Japan and Qatar and
Yes.
in the UK who are interested in the whole process. Yeah. But I think the difficulty with KPT, sometimes they feel that we are competing with them. Most of the ideas yang kita rasakan, that's challenging to them, they will not accept it. I mean, that's the most saddest. But Khalid Nordin was buying into this. Now he has moved to Pertahanan. Maybe we should go to Pertahanan now. Other universities depend on where the minister stands. If the minister stands say no ranking, then everybody say no ranking. Now everybody is trying to justify. I think we have got 5 universities working with us now.
And they will be joining the exhibition as well. UTM, UPM, UDMAP, and
UTM.
UTM.
We are sometimes interested.
We have also presented to, we have presented to USM at the later stage once we have finalized the community university appraisal system, and we have shared the idea, and they will be joining us soon. The 4 university together with IAM was at initial stage bila kita develop, and now we not only local but we also have international partners all over the world. So inshallah the other universities are joining us soon.
Champion sustainability. So kalau together like Sunway champion for USM champion. So if you have these champions of sustainability coming in, that will really bring it up.
Sunway is a good one. Sunway.
Don't talk about planetary health punya ni, but the whole of Sunway is actually moving sustainability big time.
And we have also partnered with all our global partners yang on education for sustainable development, which include Malaysian University as well, under the umbrella of RCE, Regional Center of Expertise. Yeah. Boleh tu.